Reveille, reveille.
Look at us now, tip to...
Ooh, Jesus.
Shout to Morning Kombat.
Do you want a margarita? Yes! My God!
It's us doing what we love. But it's time to bang. Oh, yeah, it's Monday. You feeling what I'm feeling right now? This is the best damn combat sports show of all time. They call it Morning Kombat. Metal Arc Studios, Manhattan, and Monday, November 18th, 2024. Tyson Paul is behind us. Keyword behind. UFC 309 behind us. My name is Brian Campbell, your host, your co-host, excuse me, the alpha of the two, right? The American of the two as well. And this is the Indian-born Luke Thomas. Luke, if we, I was a little salty pre-show.
Jesus, were you ever?
We decided to sit a little deeper in the eighth row and just roll out the balls and see what happens, right? You know what I mean?
Hey, listen, it was weird, man. Like, there was a lot of eyeballs on combat sports, and you always think that's what you want. And then you get it, and you're like, I'm good with this being a fight in pool halls and, a van down by the river.
You know, the worst part
need a
was
bigger audience.
The best part of that broadcast was obviously that incredible co-main event, the women's rematch, and my thing buffered or froze for half of the fight.
Yeah.
That's great.
I couldn't believe how bad Netflix was. I've never had an issue with them before, ever. And they were ESPN Plus bad. And that's bad.
Well, we had that on Friday. We had the Republican National Convention on Saturday again. So
I was like, dude, are they going to break up the fights on Saturday with a Tony Hinchcliffe routine? I didn't know. I didn't know how that was going to go, you know?
Well, hey, we're back at it. This is what we do. Thank you for joining us, folks. Hope you enjoyed the fights this weekend. We will break down those two monster mega events, answer your questions in DMs from Donks, and, of course, Luke's going to find out what's in that she-at this week, and I hear it's a good one. Yeah, I do hear
You know what? Here's the problem. Do we have Tyson Paul stuff in there?
Yes.
Okay, so we do have elder abuse, a little bit.
Not footage of the fight.
Do we have elder abuse at all?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think other people get
People were
abused.
mad when I was like, dude, stretch this guy. And like, you want to see Mike get stretched? And I'm like, have you listened to 1 second of Morning Kombat?
Yes.
Elder abuse is a key component
Elder abuse is what
we do.
In fact, do right
Dude,
there.
us being here is fucking elder abuse. I'm so tired I could cry.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I was up till 4. I worked till 4:30 Friday and 4 a.m. on Saturday, but that's what I signed up for.
I did a little bit the opposite. I did 4 on Friday, and then I did 5 on Saturday night.
Yeah, so I've been great to be around the house. Let's bring in our third member. He's the co-host of the Main Card Minute.
Yep.
They call him Aussie Rules Long Island Luke. Nocita in the house.
What's up, guys? How are we?
Great.
Old, tired.
You got anything to say? Say what you need to say.
Pretty good weekend. You know, the fights were a little sloppy, but we made some money. So
did you rip a bong with Gaff?
Oh yeah, we ripped plenty of.
What is your smoke of choice?
I'm an indica guy, but I'll go hybrid as well.
No, okay, but which one?
What do you mean, which one?
Wow.
What's the name of the variety that you?
Oh, I get different. I was smoking purple Wagyu this weekend.
Is that beef?
Yeah,
You know what my choice of delicacy was? Gelato cake.
Yeah,
That was the strain that I had.
That's
gelato.
another good one.
Yep.
Yeah, sometimes, Luke, combat sports is so shitty that you got to just party to get through it.
How could you watch that Paul Tyson fight and think to yourself, man, you know what I need to be right now? Sober.
Yeah.
Who the fuck says something like that? That was one of the worst things
us.
I've ever seen.
Did you have a nice, what we're talking about? We worked all weekend.
Yeah.
How's the Tukes?
Tukes is great. Mom helped me out big time. So her mom, I should say anyway, helped me out big time.
You call her your wife. It's fine.
I'm just
it's legal, right?
My brain's not firing. I'm not putting articles together correctly.
Do you have one of these Jon Jones marriages where you don't actually get married?
No. I'm fully married.
All
I'm
right.
fully married.
But do you have one of these Jon Jones marriages?
Man, there's a thing I want to say that would probably get me fired, but the answer is no.
Yes.
No, but my wife took good care of Tukey, and I was able to carve out a little bit of time. And so I spent as much time as I took her biking on her longest bike ride that she's ever been on
nice.
Saturday.
Okay.
And she loved it. So that was great.
What a great job as her father. You, by the way, can like and subscribe to what we do here on Morning Kombat every Monday and Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time.
Your brain's not working
on
either.
the YouTubes, and you can follow us, of course, right there on the socials, along with our YouTube channels. and at the main card minute, I'm sure, for the other guy on the show as well. And we have merch. I'm wearing this old school.
That's the old school
crew
one.
neck
That's from
sweatshirt
the
here.
for folks who don't know. That's from the old Showtime website.
Yes, it is. You can go to morningcombat.store right now and get
The newer variety.
I mean, I think I have not received confirmation that anyone's behind the cash register, but I assume they are.
This show technically exists, but I don't know if it actually exists. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you for your support in that regard. We won't have Randy Couture today, though. But
he is booked.
How good was Sean Porter on Friday, by the way, in hindsight?
He's great. Yeah,
Great.
he's great.
It's fantastic, yeah.
But yeah, Randy is booked for today. I just don't think it's
Just
going to matter.
Probably
You know
not
what I'm
going to
saying?
make it, yeah.
Are you doing okay, Brian? You've had 2 weeks in a row, because you get here before I do.
I get here at like 8:30.
Yeah, you get here before I do. There's 2 weeks in a row where I've gotten here and I've waltzed into the room, and you're angrier than me, and that takes a little bit of work.
Yeah, I'll be all right, though. You know?
All right.
All right. I'll be all right. We've got a show, so why don't we do the show? Luke, we got seasons, right?
Explain to me how this is going to go, because the Paul Tyson fight was first technically on the weekend. It was on
Yes.
Friday, not Saturday. And it was the bigger of the two. I don't know if you ever looked at any Google trend numbers. Dude, the Paul Tyson fight, UFC 309 was big. Jon Jones is obviously a big attraction. But even then, Paul Tyson was a bigger cultural sporting event.
Yeah, it's like
by
pick your
miles.
poison if you're a fan of the show. Do you want it up front or do you want to
But what we're going to do is, based on the rundown you put together, we're going to do all the UFC stuff first, and then we'll end on Paul Tyson.
Yeah, then we'll end on the sour note.
And then we'll kill him on air.
Yeah.
For that.
Okay. Hey, let's hit it with topic number 1, and it was the I don't know what it was. It was two old guys, but hey, we found out something about it. It was UFC 309, of course, Madison Square Garden, and the heavyweight main event. 1 year plus in the making as Jon Jones returns from an 18-month layoff and major surgery, and just his second fight in 5 years to dominate Stipe Miocic via third-round TKO, send him into retirement. So, Luke, I said it, second fight in 5 years, the layoff, the injury. Jones looked like a complete heavyweight threat. We can get into the Stipe side of it and all of that, and should you take away or add on? What about Aspinall? We'll get into all of that. But first and foremost, Jon was the recognized GOAT coming in. He beat the greatest heavyweight in this promotion's history. What does this do or add on or anything? What does this add to Jon Jones's legacy after UFC 309?
Nothing. It does nothing for his legacy.
Just another really, really good name on it. I mean, at the very least, didn't it establish who he is at heavyweight, which we didn't get against Cyril Gane?
Yes. You asked about his legacy.
Sure.
So I kind of focused on that. There are things that we did learn on Saturday, and for that I am grateful. I did feel like I've got a bigger picture and a better picture of Jon's athleticism at 37. I think it's diminished, but still formidable is the way I would put that. I looked at his offense. I thought that it wasn't quite as good as it once was, but still pretty potent. And in particular, he had access to many different tools inside of the tool belt that I thought were very impressive. That Osoto Gari, he hit the trip throw in the first round.
Sure.
I mean, that was
perfect.
that was awesome. That was really, really cool.
Well,
really cool. But let me just make a statement about the legacy.
Yeah, make it.
I went back and I watched the trailer that the UFC put out for UFC 295. That was going to be the original meeting between
1
Jon
year
and
ago.
Stipe. And the language that they used featured routinely baddest man on the planet, baddest man on the planet. We're going to find out who's the baddest man on the planet. Guys, I think there's a lot to like about Jones's performance. I still believe that. But I went back and I watched a bunch of Miocic fights on the way here today. I was gobsmacked at the level of difference in his athleticism, recuperative powers, speed, his legs being there. The win over Stipe was good for him financially. It's good for him in terms of, I think he got if this is the end, he even said it, this is the end that I wanted. But you asked about legacy.
And I wanted to...
Beating that version of that guy means fuck all when your legacy is built off of much more legitimate light heavyweight wins and the accomplishment that comes with that.
Yeah, and I didn't want to throw that out ignorantly and think that you're going to say, oh, this makes him from the number one fighter all time to the +1 fighter all time. What I guess I was saying is there's a lot we can take away, and we're going to talk about Stipe and everything there. But for Jon to come back from the layoff, from the serious surgery, from the one fight in 2 years, and that fight was 1 fight in 5 years, and that fight was 2 minutes, basically, for him to just come in there and win dominantly the way he did, even with the asterisks and the things we want to throw in, I guess that's what I was focusing on legacy. The idea that Jon's legacy is multifaceted. It's the wins, it's the youngest champion, it's so many things. But what I think he's adding on is the consistency. And I know there's a big breaks in between, but for him to come back and it looked like nothing changed, and I got to admit, like you, in the moment, I tweeted out a bunch of things that was like, oh my God, Jon Jones is the king and the king is back. I mean, it was a statement.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, now we have to talk about, like, it's kind of like Tyson versus Paul. We had fears coming in that it was going to be pro wrestling, and it kind of was. We had fears coming in that Jones Miocic was going to be two old guys in there. And I think in the moment, I was so excited about what Jon did for himself, for him to come back like nothing's changed. And it's like 16 years later, this guy's still doing it. And I do think you can add on to that legacy, and there's certain parts of that. But was it in the end living out to our worst expectations? Was it two old guys? I felt after rewatching the fight 2, 3, 4 times, I'm with you. I'm kind of getting souring each time even more. See, I was caught up in Stipe. Was he flat? Was he all these things slow? He was. I thought it was because of the first round beating he took, the final 3 minutes and 30 seconds where Jon sat on him and elbowed him in the face 400 times, right? You watch that fight from the start, though. Something off about Stipe.
So
the
how about
timing.
this? Go back and watch the rematch between Stipe Miocic and JDS2. This was the fight that was in Dallas. I think Joanna Jessica Andrade was
UFC
on that
211.
card. Yeah, maybe that's the one. Yes,
that's Stipe and JDS in the rematch.
JDS2. Yes,
yeah.
I was there that card. And
Masvidal's on that card. I
Yep.
remember that one. Yeah.
I think Cejudo might be on that card as well. What I'm trying to make is go watch his body language when they're reading out his name, when he's being introduced. He's jumping in the air, he's smiling, he's moving back and forth, he's loose. There's a complete difference in body language. And then BC, oh my God, please do not take my word for it. Double check this. Do not believe me just by me saying this. I'm sure many of you won't. So please take the Pepsi challenge and go watch how light on his feet. He doesn't move like crazy. He never did. But there's a flow and a rhythm and a bounce to him that is so markedly different than the version of the guy that showed up on Saturday. People think this means that you can't say nice things about what Jones did. And that's not my argument. My argument is two things. One, Stipe was a corpse. Jon Jones fought a corpse on Saturday night. So
No, but I guess I'm trying to figure out if you really believe that, or if you think you got to give Jones credit for those hard kicks to the body,
so
which
the
started
first
early.
JDS fight, not the second. I just referenced the second. The first one, which was a Fox main event, JDS beat the living shit out of Stipe, and his recuperative powers are infinitely greater than what you saw on Saturday. So do I believe that Jones roughing him up in the way that he did for 3.5 rounds really made a difference in the end in both how he looked later on and the fight itself? Of course, there's simply no denying. But at the same time, I've seen Stipe literally take worse beatings than that and drive much harder than that. He was 40 fucking 2.
Yeah, but have you seen him on a 3-year layoff? Have you seen him with,
right?
you know,
He was in 42. I mean, it's just insane how unprepared basically he was for the moment. Not because he didn't train, but because of the circumstances he finds himself in. But I just want to be clear, like, he fought a corpse, but that doesn't mean you can't say nice things about Jon. And the thing I want to point out is a heavyweight doing a spinning back kick or a turning back kick, leaving their feet is impressive.
Yes.
The Osotogari trip he hit in the first round, by the way, off of a leg kick, an oblique kick, was very...
His whole kicking game was very impressive.
Was very impressive. And he was going round kick or cut kick to the inside, then deep in the middle. Stipe didn't have a fucking clue where that was going. He had a broad array of weapons that ranged from acrobatic to just standard fundamental. How about his jab from both stances for Jon? People think because Stipe was
his jab was a weapon.
Yeah. People think because Stipe was such a lifeless husk that you can't say anything nice about Jon. And you're saying, well, he can only do that because Stipe's a lifeless husk. No, I don't believe that. I think it got exaggerated, and he was like really kicking his ass because of that. But it still looked to me like Jon had access to many of his core weapons and core offensive identity. The switching stances, the single strike where you just can't predict what's coming. He had some decent pop on his punches, too. Again, I understand the conditions of who he's fighting.
And his ground and pound top.
His ground and pound was just, it's always been a nightmare. Brandon Vera getting his face broken is key to that. And by the way, it's the same trip he hit on, I think, either Matt Yushchenko or Stephan Bonner. The point I'm trying to make is I can appreciate that Jon looked, we got a bigger picture look at Jon, and I liked a lot of what I saw. But if we're going to ask, like, how representative would that be against a different opponent or what it means for his broader legacy, Well, that's where the answers, I think, now need to change a little bit. Like
Sure.
last thing I'm going to say is like you, when I was watching Saturday night, I knew that Stipe had been knocked down a peg. I didn't realize how far it was until I went back and I watched older footage. I was like, oh my God. So I do think we have to regrade some stuff, but I don't think we have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Jon's got some ability. We should recognize it.
Well, Dana glazed Jon heavily afterwards, like you would expect. And in the moment, I was very caught up in just how awesome, well-rounded, and dominant a performance that was. And it doesn't take away from that whether Stipe was a corpse or not. Jon came in prepared. And the thing that Dana harped on, which I think is true, Jon's IQ is through the roof. And we always knew that. He's coachable, he's a hard worker, he can adapt and all of that. But, I mean, his IQ will serve him well. I think when you add in that power jab, the threat of his kicking game, for the most part, even against an old opponent, I was very impressed with what I saw. The part that I wasn't fully impressed, Luke, and obviously this bears weight on our second topic, which will be the potential of this Aspinall fight. Do you think Jon's punch defense was a little off? Did you pick up on that?
In
a couple
what sense?
times
Because he was retreating?
He was retreating heavily. He was getting hit with slow punches from Stipe in round 2 that I didn't think he'd have no problem picking up on. There was just a little bit, and again, we're talking about two older fighters coming off of big layoffs and legitimate injury return from Jon. There was just some parts of that I didn't love for Jon, because remember, this is really our close-up of who Jon is at heavyweight here in his late 30s. For the most part, very impressed. I was a little nervous about that. What did you think about his defense and some of the outside of him having great success in putting his foot on the gas offensively? What else did you notice?
So we're talking about defensively, right? So he's got that long guard, and what he did, this is not new. Posting on a shoulder, even posting on a face as he retreats, that's not new at all. He's been doing that a long time. There was some stuff where he would even release the post and just resort to straight up running. Chandler did something similar, by the way, against Oliveira. And
Sure.
by the way, both fights, the first Chandler Oliveira and the second Chandler Oliveira, didn't cost him as much in the second one. But in any case, so a lot of that was the same. I do admit, though, there were times when he didn't do that, where he would release the post and then just turn his back and run. And I'm like,
It looked uncomfortable.
well, I think he was. Here's the thing. If you cut corners in a fight because you know your opponent can't make you pay, that doesn't mean you would do it against somebody else.
Sure.
But what I can say is if you did that against somebody else, like a Tom Aspinall, it would go real poorly.
We don't
for
use
you.
that name on the show.
It would go real poorly for you. But I'm not saying he would.
Right.
He literally might have chosen to be like, I know I can just get away with it. So it'd be one of those things. So again, I thought if you just look at what Jon, the performance that he turned in, we're not talking about the greater context, just how did it look? It looked pretty good.
It looked well-rounded. It looked dangerous. I mean, look, if he could, there's so many heavyweights that with the combination of his IQ, that big jab, and the threat of his kicks, he's going to be a major problem. And oh, by the way, he also can take you down, or if he goes to the ground, will have no problem staying a submission threat. I mean, he is everything, Luke, if you're being fair, that we kind of wanted him to be at heavyweight. It's just now that it's coming when he's older, when he's inactive, and in this case, it came against somebody who didn't give us the full representation. Unfortunately, this is the biggest crime so far. Jon has 2 heavyweight fights, this thing we were waiting for so long, and neither one gave us that firm, full understanding of exactly where he is. We learned a lot more here. I was very impressed in the moment with Jon. Just feel like rewatching that, now you're starting to pick out where Stipe really never was Stipe in this
Let me
fight.
ask you, BC. Relative to Cormier 2 or Gustafsson 2, how much of and this would be inevitable, this is not an attack per se, how much of a physical decline in Jon are you able to now notice?
20%.
And what gives you the confidence to say that?
I think the reactions to punches, like I'm saying, I was a little bit concerned by that. It wasn't as quick. It wasn't as confident. And maybe this plays into, our second topic, which we'll get to ad nauseum, but this whole idea of like, is Jon only doing this anti-Aspinall stance because it's all about the money and he's doing a full-on negotiation takeover? Or is it because he fears that he would lose to Aspinall? And I think we all wonder that, knowing Aspinall's hand speed and power. But I think that I didn't see full confidence. Now, it's understandable because Jon's coming off a layoff and a serious injury, but I didn't see full confidence in how he dealt with the potential of Stipe's striking in terms of the body language and in the way that he moved and all of that. So, but I also think, like, look, he's got to kind of prove to himself, too, that he can do this at this level. You know what I mean? When you are gone for that time, it is a lot for the mind to run and question himself. I think he's still kind of learning who he is as heavyweight right along with us. And with that, it brought. No, he's not the same guy as those people you referenced by any chance. But I think he's a more well-rounded fighter now. I think he's used the time off effectively. He's training like crazy. I mean, we're going to play a video in a second about that spinning back kick that shows that's not a lucky strike that happened. Like, he is a true class student of this game. It's can he hold off those physical failings and continue to stay efficient, and is he going to be able to hurt people consistently? I think the full package he showed
consistently. He's got one more fight left tops. I mean, there's I don't know what consistently at all. I will say this: I don't want to beat up on the commentary team because we know Anik, and I think he does a phenomenal job. He's one of the best, if not the best, play-by-play guy in the entire sport. He's just a credit to the sport itself. We love Jon Anik, and I think these guys are dealing with restrictions on what they can reasonably say because there's no other way to explain. And this is more a criticism of Rogan in DC. And are
you trying to say that Hoofy didn't look like prime Conor McGregor when Conor was Conor? Is that what you're trying to say?
He had some cool moments.
No, just
that look away uppercut was badass.
I know, but that statement was made like 500 times.
But like the way in which they tried to present this, like we were still living at 295 again, which by the way, even then it didn't even make any sense. But then a year and a half on top of it, where you're like, they're trying to be like, this is, they were trying to be like, if you can, even in the Paul Craig fight, they're like, I mean, if you can submit Jamal Hill, you can submit anyone. And I'm like, Jamal Hill's a good fighter, but what the fuck are you talking about?
That's a legacy fight for Jon.
That doesn't make any sense at all. And then in the main event, they're like, to beat Stipe Miocic in like the greatest heavyweight. It's like, dude, he's not fighting the guy that whooped Verdum.
They were heavy on propaganda.
It was to the point where I was like, dude, what the fuck are y'all? This is not even real. It's not even remotely accurate. You're not describing reality. This is something else. And I don't feel like that honestly does a bit of a disservice to Jones, who, again, if you're just watching Jones, he did a lot of very cool, awesome things. There was a lot of ability he still showed. But now we're having to deal with this propaganda about, it's the baddest guy on the planet. And did he?
They are playing to his ego at every turn, though. I think it's calculated.
I saw so many casual fans being like, dude, to beat the guy who was the #1 heavyweight. And I'm like, fellas, he's closer to Jimmy Carter than he is fucking, He
also got knocked out by the best heavyweight right now, Francis Ngannou, right? Like, let's be real
his last
about that.
one. Yeah. I mean, I really felt like this is what I mean. Like, people keep talking about the UFC as like a free speech organization. They're the most restrictive free speech organization or not restrictive speech organization on the planet. That's who they are. And part of it bleeds into any number of directions, not least of which is the commentary. And then you get this representation. And again, I think they're doing the best that they can with the rules that they have been told.
But didn't they do that with the whole Gon situation involving Jon? Dana still does it to this day. They talk about Gon as being the #1 heavyweight that he beat. It's like Gon was coming off
of a loss to Francis,
and a near loss to, not near loss, but like a scare against Tuivasa.
Bit of a back and forth against
Tuivasa,
right
in a fight where you're like, did he take a step back in his in his evolution and his growth and all that? It is a constant propaganda reframing of it. It really is. But I wonder if it's like calculated to pump up Jon's ego, calling him the pound for pound #1 as he walked into the press conference. Like, there's been signs, maybe changing the gloves because of him, just maybe. Like, there's been signs that they are trying to keep him as confident and happy and almost worshipped as possible. Let's hear from Jon, though, because that finishing kick, I wish we could show you the highlight, was absolutely nasty. And that was a shotgun sound. It was like when I was ringside for Golovkin versus Matthew Macklin.
Do you remember?
And that body punch went.
Do you remember when who was the big kicker, the Russian guy that Ben Askren beat up in Bellator?
Are you talking about Koreshkov?
Koreshkov.
Yeah.
Do you remember when Koreshkov broke 7 of Chance Rencounter's ribs?
Yes.
Reminded me of that.
That was a loud noise. This was a strike, by the way, that Jon had prepped continuously coming in. Let's hear from BONY.
I really want to give a shout out to my taekwondo coach, a guy named Paige Bates from Albuquerque, New Mexico. His family owns Bates Taekwondo in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We started about 6 months ago.
All right, guys, I don't think this clip has audio.
He would come
all right, well,
3 days a week.
What?
Can we just take it off the fucking screen then?
All right, so in short,
this is the worst show in America.
In short, Jon said that they would work on that kick for 3 hours a day.
I believe
training camp.
I believe.
I'm sorry, 3 hours a week, focused exactly on that kick from both shoulders.
He's done the kick before. This is not the first time.
Right, but this is a weapon at heavyweight against these slower fighters.
A heavyweight who can leave his feet like this. This was my biggest takeaway from the fight, or one of the biggest ones. Jon still very much is a very good heavyweight. I don't know if he's the best one. And I'm saying
He's the most well-rounded we're seeing.
He's definitely the most well-rounded for sure, and the experience level that he's got. Even if Francis is number one, John's experience is just absurd. It's second to none. I don't know if he's the best one. He could be, but at a bare minimum, he's still very much one of the top guys in the division. I don't think Stipe Miocic can beat anyone in the top 15.
15. Wow.
Okay. You say that. You ready for this?
Wow,
hold
dude,
on.
this is not a deep division.
Okay, hold on. You say that.
I mean, he's old as shit.
Fine.
But
You say that. I didn't believe that either until I went and looked myself, and I was like, I cannot confidently say he beats any of these guys.
dude, there's a lot of Tyburas in this division. Okay?
Tybura beats him. Did you see Tybura on this card? He beats him.
I'm not.
Long Island Luke, I know you're busy. Does Marcin Tybura beat this version of Stipe?
Fuck, that's a tough match.
Long Island Luke.
Okay, he's sitting at 12. 11, Marcos Rogerio de Lima.
Stipe beats him.
Stipe beats
Okay,
that, dude.
50-50.
Hold on. Pause 1 second. Long Island Luke.
What's up?
Was Stipe old and slow and washed this entire fight, or only after Jones took him down?
The
and did it?
entire fight.
I think I'm realizing now it was the entire fight.
I mean, we were talking about it before, dude. I was already pretty toasted by the time the main event came on. But I will
He's
say,
very honest. This
on
guy.
paper going into this fight, I thought Stipe was going to look old as shit. So I'm not that surprised that he looked like that.
Now, maybe he does beat Waldo Cortez Acosta.
Yeah, what are we doing here? Of
Okay,
course he
hold
beats
on.
that guy.
12 is Tai Tuivasa. As bad as that's been, I think the hand speed could give Stipe a ton of problems.
Guy's washed as
11
shit.
is Derek Lewis. I'm sorry, Derek Lewis smokes this version of him. He does.
Surprised they never fought, right? Surprised.
It is a surprise. 10, Rosenstruck. The hand speed, sorry. 9, Tybura. 8 is Miocic. 7, Spivak. I mean, get the fuck out of here. Spivak washes him.
I don't even know if that's a full fact.
Dude, you're out of your mind. I can buy that DeLima and Acosta.
Dude, one judge gave Stipe round 2 against John.
I went back and I watched. I don't agree, but it was closer than I thought it was.
It was close-ish, yes.
I didn't agree. I gave it to John as
But
well.
Stipe had no power on his shots at all.
He had nothing. He had no pop. And everyone wants to make it
He
out
was
like,
flat-footed, too.
he would have been 34 years old, but for the 3.5 of ground and pound. And listen, the 3.5 minutes of ground and pound was nasty.
That's
like,
a lot.
I'm sure
How
it
did his
affected
face
him.
not break open, by the way?
I'm sure it affected him. Dude, I'm telling you, BC, the body language when he's being introduced before the second JDS fight, he's pacing back and forth, jumping in the air, biting on his mouthpiece, chewing his way, high-fiving his corner.
He had a biting fixation. I don't know if you
No, listen to me. High-fiving his corner. Like, dude, unfucking... This guy was... just fucking sitting there waiting to be assassinated.
Okay.
Totally different.
Well, look, I admit, it fooled me in the moment to thinking, like, pound for pound, John was back. Apparently it fooled Dana, unless he's just being a great marketer. Let's listen to the UFC CEO react to that.
This is the greatest fighter ever. But to do that to Stipe and just turn him off with a spinning back kick of everything, just what was your reaction to what we saw?
And the kicks that started right from the jump, hurt him with the first kick. This guy's fight IQ is off the charts. And, everybody gonna admit now that he's the pound for pound best fighter in the world?
Yeah, no.
And let me tell you what, this thing had upset written all over it too. I mean, Stipe, all the talk about Jon Jones, Stipe seemed pissed, focused, and he came here to win. He looked good. He was physically in great shape. The list goes on, and Jon literally picked him apart. The jab was unbelievable tonight. How he was kicking the legs and the body. Every time he kicked the body, I thought it was over. And then he would go for the head kick and slipping punches. I mean, he's going to be 38 years old this summer. He looked incredible. I just don't know how any of you don't see that this guy's the fucking greatest fighter in the history of fucking people fighting. He's 37 going on 38. And again, tonight, he went in and did what he did. He's fucking unbelievable. And as long as he's active, he's the pound for pound best fighter in the world.
Okay, he's not. And no one's arguing that he's not the GOAT, by the way. But what do you make, he's basically saying that he's the greatest fighter ever. Like, I feel like they're now close to trying to say that in competitive fighting, in the history of it, boxing, kickboxing, what have you. Wrestling? Probably not, right? No.
Well, I mean,
but,
if you include wrestling, then he's definitely not.
Right. So are they trying to say? You think that's what they're ultimately trying to say?
I don't even pay attention to that. If you wanted to say that this,
he's better than Muhammad Ali. I mean,
if you're going to include wrestling, Alexander Karelin, like, get the fuck out of here. I mean, we're not, multiple Olympic gold medals. Like, we're not, just stop. Like, in a sport with a significantly higher participatory rate, it is much harder to make the Russian national team or the Soviet team. It is much harder to get. I mean, just get the fuck out of here. But okay, That I don't care about. If you wanted to say, hey, as long as he's active or at any point, I consider him the best ever, I think that's totally fine.
Yes.
That's a completely legitimate argument. No problem.
And I think he's in the top 3 still pound for pound.
Compare, and I know you're going to hate this, BC, but just go with me for a second. And you know I'm right on this one. You can call me the fucking Glizzy King for this. I don't care. Compare what Ilia Topuria did against a... Hold on. Are you not going to tell me it's more impressive than beating... Excuse me. You're going to tell me it's more impressive or commensurate for Jon to beat Stipe, this version of it,
I will not tell you
than
that.
beating fucking Max Holloway off of the UFC 300 win? It's just not even remotely the same accomplishment.
So
It's
do you
not.
think it should go Islam and then either Alex or Ilya at 2 or 3, depending how you have it, and then Jon at 4?
Yes.
Because I tried to just throw out there that he's probably still top 3, but he's probably really 4th, which is, dude, to be 37, to have all this time off.
It's amazing.
The one thing Dana's right on is the well-rounded performance was eye-opening. You just have to obviously weigh it against. But you think that they're just basically doing full-on propaganda machine. I think they're also trying, as we slowly transition to the second topic, I think they're trying to puff up Jon, and they know that if the easier he can win, the more dominant he can look, the more willing he's going to be to keep coming back and fighting. Love that, man. I did love a lot of that offense from Jon. I did love. So here's the deal. I listened to a lot of the pre-fight stuff, and like people like Chael and DC, the biggest question they had is, could Jon at heavyweight be a finisher? Could he have the striking to finish guys? Luke, if he's mixing the kicks like he did against Stipe here and is setting things up with that big jab and can take people down and wear them out in that regard, he won't be a one punch or one strike guy. I mean, I think he could head kick people out of there, but these kicks can get heavyweights out of there. Like he
His
may have
kicking
a path
game is
to be
incredibly
dangerous.
dynamic. At least it was in this fight. And again, you did not have a fighter who had fleet of foot and was really using a lot of lateral movement. He was slow going side to side. And so
He
Jon
couldn't pick up any of those body shots.
No,
He just
and
couldn't see
Jon,
him coming.
I went back and I looked. Jon hit the spinning back kick from both the southpaw and orthodox stance because he was just getting him as he would fade to one direction or the other. When you got a guy who's kind of like incrementally stepping, it's a little easier at a time. But I want to point out something here. They have Jon Jones getting 1 of 1 on takedown attempts from Saturday. I'm sorry, I went back and I watched there was a couple of, I think at least one more pure wrestling takedown that he tried in the middle of the octagon that got completely shut down by a Stipe. One thing I did notice at the end of Jon's 205 run was he was having more and more trouble with the takedown. Now, obviously, that fucking Osotogari that he hit was amazing, amazing trip. But his standard pure wrestling, to me, is not as dominant as it once was, as the sport has caught up. Small note.
That's fair.
Small note.
That is definitely fair. But that takes us right into topic number 2, Jon Jones and what he does next. He came out in the cage and said, look, you're probably not retiring now. Didn't say Aspinall's name by name, talked about Jesus, talked about Trump, did the dance and all of that. But then backstage, it almost seemed like Jon changed his tune. We'll get to that. But Luke, what Jon did say in the post-fight press conference is to fight Tom Aspinall, he's going to need, quote, fuck you money, and that he ultimately still prefers the Alex Pereira fight. So I want to play one clip, and then I'll tee you up to get your reaction. But here is Jon talking about what it would take to get him to fight Aspinall.
What specifically has he said or done to make him an asshole?
There's just a lot of people on his nuts right now. And
Are we doing this now? Is every clip like this?
Jon Jones T-shirts.
This seems like a
I'm glad we found that out ahead of time.
That he does.
Okay, so Jon says that Jon doubled down again on why he dislikes Aspinall. None of it seems to make any sense at all, but did say he's going to need fuck you money. So Luke Thomas, from all of the fight week rhetoric, and we went over it like crazy about is Jon a goat or a duck, to what Jon has said after the fight. Do you A, believe that he actually will fight Aspinall, and B, will the UFC pay him handsomely enough to make sure that they don't miss this super fight?
I don't exactly know what the future holds. What I can say is the information that has been presented to us would lead me, if that holds true, that no, he would not fight Aspinall. He says he wants fuck you money. What does that mean? Could it mean something similar to what he referenced what Mike Tyson and Jake Paul were getting?
Yes.
Respectively, we believe 20 million and 40 million.
Yes.
So let's
Tyson getting 20,
let's average that out. That's 30 million. And in fact, that 30 million figure is kind of interesting because Dana White had previously noted that is what Deontay Wilder makes. Jon wants that. And, we're just not going to change the way we do business. He didn't say we're not going to pay him that. This was a couple of years ago, I think 2022, when I found that clip. So Here's the thing to me that like people really misunderstand about this situation. Everyone's like, "Oh, Jon's got leverage." He's got some leverage. It's not to say he has no leverage. He has some. If they would rather have him fight once more than not. That gives him some leverage. He doesn't really need to fight again. That also gives him some leverage. However, the UFC has never paid anyone, not Conor, not Khabib, not Nate, not Ronda,
Or
Brock, fuck you money. It's never happened. Listen.
They offered it to Francis for one night against Jon.
Even that $10 million, that's not fuck you money.
In UFC levels, that's fuck you money.
No. John Nash estimated that Jon probably got around 10 to 13 million for Saturday night. He's saying that is insufficient. He wants multiples of that.
Deontay Wilder money, yeah.
He literally, people have the audacity to be like, oh, he's not ducking Tom. And Jon let slip, and no one really picked up on this, but he let slip, I would need some money so great that it would basically ensure against the negativity and the feeling I would get from losing. Motherfuckers, what proof more do you need than he doesn't want to fight the guy? Yes, if they come with a fucking Brinks truck.
I want to believe it's about the money. I want to believe that this is all about
What they're trying to do is they're trying to launder ducking through some kind of self-empowerment, I deserve to get paid kind of argument, permission structure, which I can see right through. It's fucking bullshit. But more to the point, it's this, BC. If you really want to get fuck you money, it doesn't exist inside the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Good money, great money can exist there. Not fuck you money. They don't pay that. They've never paid that. We know from the court documents they're going to keep fighter pay aggregately every year at 20% or less. It's in their documentation that they want a fixed business cost as it relates to fighter pay. Second of all, while he would be valuable to them, because they could obviously, if depending on where their next television deal goes or whatever, when he fights, it's important and it's big.
So they're not going to let him go fight Francis in the smart cage.
Right. They already have a system where they have minimized what they call the lumpiness of the pay-per-view model, where it's big one time and small another, and it can be quite difficult to predict or at least count on event to event what you're going to get. They have more guaranteed contractual revenue than ever. You mean to tell me that person has leverage over a monopoly that controls basically the entire industry? They make 90 cents of every dollar in the entire MMA industry. It's not possible. The way to get fuck you money is to do what Francis did. That's how you get fuck you money. And if anybody could have done something similar to Francis, it is Jon. Jon's essential argument is, I have enough leverage inside the monopoly system to make the monopoly bend to me once. Your question was, will they do it? I don't think they'll do that. I mean, it's hard to know, but all evidence suggests they've never done that, and I don't think that's going to change.
I think the only one that would have had a chance to get FU money, real FU money, would have been Khabib if he would have come back for the Conor rematch.
That's the closest you're going to get. And by the way, maybe Jon's like, maybe Jon.
I got to have a chance to talk.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll finish here. I apologize. Maybe Jon sits out a year and a half, and he gets even older and older, and they decide we really want one last big one. Maybe then they come calling. Hard to say. Let's see what kind of year they have. But as it stands today, I don't think that's likely.
That's what I was going to say. In that clip that we weren't able to play the sound, Jon basically threatens and says, just how much Aspinall doesn't interest him, how much Poatan is the only fight that does, and how basically, hey, I'll just give up the belt and retire if that's the case. So I think that's the only leverage Jon will have left, really, is to threaten that, okay, then I don't want to play ball at all. So maybe it's good for Jon, this next audio piece from Dana, for how big Dana thinks a Jon versus Tom fight can actually get.
It doesn't have the potential to. It's going to be. It's going to be the biggest heavyweight fight ever. It'll probably be the biggest fight we've ever done. And I hate stadiums, man. I hate them. I like arenas. It's just such a better vibe. People can see better. Probably not.
And that fight will obviously take place in the USA.
We don't know. We're talking about. We were literally talking about a lot of different options tonight before we came in here.
So England's a potential.
Could be anywhere. Could literally be anywhere.
Okay, so Dana's interesting. Luke, biggest fight ever. He's basically saying that this will be, from a revenue standpoint, I think he's saying, and that would have to beat Conor versus Khabib, which set the MMA pay-per-view record of 2.4 million and was an insane gate just the same. So I wonder what the middle ground is. What if, John's like, hey, I need Deontay Wilder $30 million, but they get him for 19.5 in negotiations? Because if they're already pretending that this is going to be the biggest fight ever, they're going to have aggressive reason to want to get John back, especially since they can say, John, okay, you really want to fight Poatan, then we will guarantee you fight him next if you go in there and take this Tom fight and win.
Yeah, I don't think that's. He doesn't want the fight.
So John, in the clip that won't play, he goes on to say that, which I hate the way he's doing this. I don't have any means to fight dangerous up and comers anymore, and that he wants Poatan because it's such a legacy fight. Blah blah blah
dangerous
blah.
champions.
Dangerous champions. And then, when you mix that with what he said about Jamal here and Derek Lewis, I don't even think he's trolling us. And sadly, I no longer think it's only 100% of a ploy to get more money in to negotiate publicly. I want to believe that. I want to believe that he'd even risk like his own name and all of us calling him a duck and all this bad, PR. Then you can say, well, is there such a thing as bad PR? Maybe he's playing us like a puppet. I no longer think that when you take all of his quotes in totality. He's afraid to lose to this guy.
Yes.
I'm not saying
he's not afraid of him.
He's not afraid of him. He's not afraid to fight him backstage. He's afraid to lose to this guy, which leads me back to some of those moments against Stipe where in the second round where Stipe is flat-footed arm punching and John's having almost trouble like believing he could stand in there and swivel with that. John looks great. The UFC sold it as he's back and he's pound for pound number one. But we're really learning from John that he doesn't believe he can win this fight.
I think he certainly has doubts about it. When you say you want money sufficient to make you soothe the pain,
the
from
inevitability,
a loss,
right?
When you say you want money to basically soothe the pain from a loss, what you are saying is, yes, at that point the money is so great that I don't care that I lose. You'll note he's not putting those conditions on the Poatan fight. Why? Why would you put one condition on one fight and not the other? Presumably, people think, oh, you're going to make more money doing one versus the other. I actually feel like Dana's right on this one. I'm not saying it will be the biggest fight in UFC history. I don't know. Here's what I can say, BC. Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall is everything Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic pretended that it was.
Right.
It is for the, Francis is out there, but as a marketing tag, you could say it's for the baddest man on the planet. You could say it's for all the marbles. And by the way, it would be one of John's very best wins on his already very, very respectable and decorated resume. That's where we are. But this notion that he would be equally willing to fight Tom, equally willing to fight Poatan is out to lunch. I don't think he's afraid. I think he's a smart fighter who knows he's lost a step or two and wants to hedge what's left and using what little leverage he has left to get there. Whether it will be effective, I have my doubts. We shall see.
Now, Dana, for the record, said that seeing this performance against Stipe means that he doesn't ever want to see Pereira against Jon because he thinks Jon will just take him down and sit on him and basically dominate him and doesn't think it's worth it. Dana also kind of hedged it, though, and said only if these two came begging and they wanted it so badly. But I hate that he put that out there, too. I like that at the very least, it seems like UFC is making that line in the sand and saying, you want to fight? It's got to be Tom next.
Both guys have number one contender fights.
Yeah.
Ankalaev is a donk, but he earned it.
Yeah.
And Tom Aspinall, by the way, you could say he's not an established champion, but he is a dangerous champion. He's the number one contender. Both of those guys have number one contender fights. I know that sometimes it's not fun to acknowledge like the architecture of fight sport that makes it have some legitimacy.
Sure.
But if you break it on moments like this where the guys are so obviously deserving of the opportunity, you really begin to risk eroding any semblance of legitimacy that the product is already struggling to hold on to.
Oh, you must be referencing Tyson Paul. We'll talk about that at the end of the show.
I'm just saying, like, people want to believe that what Jon is saying is I have the exact same amount of fear of fighting Poatan as I do Tom Aspinall. Guys, in certain places, Jon Jones is more favored to beat Poatan than he was the ghost of Stipe Miocic.
Well, he
is the underdog to Tom Aspinall. Use your brain.
Well, Jon is playing into the joke. We can show the update he's done to his social media accounts and the new avatar, which is
who cares?
duck with that. But Luke, it plays into the most important question here. The early offshore odds have this basically a pick'em. What do you think the odds should be? And just early, like, are you seeing a path for a Tom knockout, or are you seeing a really competitive potential 5-round classic here?
I think this fight would be so exciting for as long as it lasts, and I don't know how long it would go. That's really a function of what Jon can do. Here's the way I size this up. Saturday night, my initial impression was Jon looked so good that I would now slightly favor him over Aspinall. I'm going to walk that back a little bit. I would either say 50-50 or very slight lean Aspinall.
Yeah.
Aspinall's athletic gifts clearly are going to give Jon problems if and when they ever fight. But as we've said on this show a million times, Aspinall is untested against anyone who could do anything to push him.
Yeah.
We don't know about his cardio over the long haul. We don't know about his
Never
explosion.
gone to the third round in the UFC.
We just simply don't know. And that is a decisive advantage for Jon to the extent he could put the fight there. For these reasons, BC, again, Poatan, I want to say it one more time, guys. Everyone's like, oh, the Poatan fight would be better. You're a fucking moron if you believe that. You're a fucking moron. He is more.
Okay,
no, I can't stand it.
You can dunk on him, but don't
you can
teabag
say
him, too.
I want to see Jon versus Poatan because I like both guys, and to the extent it stands up, it'll be fun. Jon's going to do to him what he did to Stipe in the first round. He's not going to stand with Poatan. What the fucking are y'all smoking the same purple Wagyu that are fucking Long Island Luke's over there smoking? That shit'll get you high as balls. The reality is, maybe the Poatan fight is a little bit bigger at this point. I think you know what's funny? I used to think it was way bigger, BC. Now I think it's only a little bit bigger because the Aspinall fight has grown in value significantly over the course of this week.
That's going to be prime theater to watch the first couple rounds if we get this fight, of seeing
We're not
Jon
going to get this fight.
navigate the power and speed of Aspinall and see him try to, keep that distance, take the fight to the ground. And what happens if he does get top position on Tom? I mean, maybe this will be their biggest fight if it happens and it's promoted right. And it's,
dude, they're going to promote this. I'm telling you, it's going to be fucking awesome.
They're going to old school promote it, right? They're gonna,
I think they would do. I mean, Jon's
press tour. Come on.
I think I'm telling if you Long Island Luke, if they did a press tour,
they don't spend that money anymore.
I know. Okay, but we're talking ifs. If they did a press tour for the title unification at heavyweight, Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall, how big do you think that would be? Promoted the right way, how big is that?
I still don't know if it's doing like Conor numbers, but it would be big.
It's not going to do the 2 million buys plus that Conor and Khabib did. That's not what I'm saying.
You could do $1 million, though.
I think you could do $1 million plus.
If they did $1.5 million, that'd be a monster.
Monster win.
Wow. That's exciting.
And one more point that we never discuss. If Jon wins, right, consider that. Consider Jon winning. He would get one of the very best wins at all in his career. He would be getting it at age 37, potentially 38, right? A gigantic payday. I mean, he would be, at that point, you would be getting to have an argument like, Jon's the best ever, and I don't even know.
God, I want to see him do it. Jon, I want to see you do this.
I don't even know if it's debatable anymore after that. By contrast, this is the point I wanted to raise. If Tom Aspinall were to emerge victorious, we keep talking in the sport about how we don't have enough star power. Well, here's one reason why. Because a lot of guys don't want to put it on the record or on the line so that star power can transfer from the old generation to the new generation.
Max put it on the line.
Max put it on the fucking line.
Yeah.
And look what it's doing for Ilya Topuria. You are enabling
look what
the
it's
next.
doing for you.
I mean, I got a boner here from here to Hanover. But I'm serious, BC. Robert Whittaker suffered because he never got that shot against GSP to grow his legend. Tom Aspinall and the heavyweight division and MMA will suffer if he never gets an opportunity to grow his legend, worth considering.
Imagine if Shogun was like, fuck this kid. You know
I know.
What I mean?
Jon Jones annoys me. I don't want to fight him. It's like, who gives a fuck who annoys
That's the final
you?
point. It's like, I think we figured out what this really is from Jon, and I hate this look for him because of how great he is. It's cool when Jon Jones wins and he's on top and he's awesome. You're watching greatness and brilliance. I want to see that. I want to see that on display. They need to pay him whatever the middle ground is that'll get him to accept it. They need to do it. And let's see this fight. Okay, final question on this topic. I think it's an important question. Do you think the only chance we have for Jon to fight Francis before they both are 40 is if Jon goes through Tom and wins? That's got to be the only way it's possible, right? Because some have said on Twitter's a cesspool of misinformation and misogyny.
It sure is.
And racism.
Yeah, they love the N-word on Twitter.
But people say, well, hey, doesn't Francis only have one fight left on his PFL deal?
Yes, that is true.
I'm not saying Francis and Dana are going to be friends again, but could the door open? Could the door open in ways we don't realize it could?
The thing is this. Jon signed. I saw people being like, "Oh, he's trying to get a new contract." Guys, he signed an 8-fight deal in January of 2023. There is no new contract.
Because John Francis is like our MMA Rumble in the Jungle. Like this is like
that would be fucking huge. Or even Tom Aspinall versus fucking
and Kinshasa.
Dude, you put that motherfucker in the studio as far as I care.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, Newark Penn. I mean, I've seen worse, you know.
I've seen ass there. I didn't need to see the Tyson fight. Yeah.
Every time I go to Newark Penn, I'm like, is that Mike Tyson's ass or just a homeless guy? In all seriousness, if Dana really wanted to, there are some options here that they could have. I mean, could you imagine bringing Francis back to UFC? If Jon doesn't want to do it and they don't want to pay him, Francis comes back and fights Tom Aspinall. Holy motherfucking shit, bro.
I know that Vince McMahon's under some shit right now that's of his own doing, it seems. But Vince would have done this. Like, say what you want about Vince McMahon.
I don't know enough about wrestling to say
psycho businessman, he is so addicted or was so addicted to doing what's best for business and the company because it's the only thing he cared about, that like people he had Dana versus Francis type riffs with, and he's had it with so many, Bret Hart, Hulk Hogan, like so many, CM Punk, whatever. They all come back home in the end because it's best for business, and Vince was able to swallow his pride because he cared more about those, you know, the wins in the box office than anything else. Dana could adopt a little more Vince. I'm not saying like, you know, he should invite threesomes into the boardroom and you know, defecate. I'm not necessarily going that far.
Yeah, it's a little much.
Like, you know, it's all alleged though, to be fair. But damn. All right, let's keep the show going. You ready? Let's get fired up. Topic number 3 is not just the UFC 309 co-main event, which turned out to be theater, but the rest of the card as well. And in that co-main event, Charles Oliveira holds off a furious Michael Chandler rally to secure, maybe at 35, a possible title shot to regain his lightweight crown. So, Luke, at 35, how much of a threat does Do Bronx still appear to be if he might be in line to fight the winner of Islam versus Sarukian 2, which could be January at the Clippers' new stadium?
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that one more time. I misunderstood the question.
How Oliveira got the win, wasn't easy in round 5. How much of a threat at 35 is he to regain the belt against the winner of that proposed title fight?
I thought there was, again, a lot of positives, some negatives from this one. We're talking like net. I think in general, he is still very much a threat to get to the title and to take the title. I don't know if I would favor him overall, but he is arguably next in line. A rematch with the winner of Sarukian versus Makhachev is a rematch for him no matter what, right? Because he has fought both of those guys. Certainly the fight against Islam was not very close, but the fight against Sarukian was.
Yes.
And for that reason, if Sarukian wins, I don't know if they'll give him one, but it's something in play. By contrast, he could also fight Max Holloway for the BMF title, which is a different title than what you're talking about. But I'll say this about what you're basically asking is, did he show something to you with this fight that makes you think he's still a viable guy to hold that belt? The answer is yes. Dude, he scored 5 of 12 takedowns on Michael Chandler. I just never would have predicted that.
I thought that was a 10-8 round in round 3? I mean, he kicked the shit out of him.
He had Mount for an he had almost 15 minutes of control time in this bout.
In the punching in the stand-up was so sharp.
Standing right in
point.
front of him, picking him off, avoiding some of the worst stuff that Michael Chandler was throwing, in part because it's wild. But yes, the offensive wrestling that I saw was fantastic. You already know about his back control. You already know about his passing. You already know about his mount. I will say there were a couple of times, BC, in rounds 2 and 3 in particular, maybe 3 and 4 actually, but certainly in the middle portions where he would have the back for extended periods.
Yes.
And he was not doing a lot of ground and pound. And I think against the upper elite guys, that could be a problem for him.
Well, that's what
because Chandler's hittable in ways that Sarukian is not, and certainly Islam is not.
So you're making the point I was going to ask you is there a little bit of fool's gold because Chandler takes such big risks because Chandler got dominated for 4 rounds. Is there a little fool's gold that Charles will do better than he did against the 2 guys we're talking about who he has losses against in his last 3 fights? That's the
what
big
I'm
question.
saying to you is, I mean, it's hard to say how a second fight goes because those guys have gotten better too. What I am saying to you is Charles still adding meaningful improvements to his game to make what was already a very offensively minded and dangerous style even more well-rounded? Yes. Yes, he is. That to me is not nothing. Now, on the net side, has age made him somewhat potentially more risk-averse in control positions, or was it just a function of Michael Chandler being very squirmy?
He's gritty, dude.
And also a very athletic scrambler. If you know you've got one, you're probably going to hold on for dear life a little bit more, right? Because to punch, your hands have to come apart. And once you do that, you're playing a different game. It's hard to say. I tend to think it was probably a little bit of both in the end. But nevertheless, the offensive wrestling, he got a takedown on Michael Chandler in every single round.
Yes.
Wow. Didn't see that coming.
And dominated on the scorecards until Michael Chandler, to his credit, at 38, despite losing 2 years in the Conor McGregor sweepstakes, he had a big rally. And Dana would reward him afterwards by saying basically, look, he's our Arturo Gatti, which is high praise. And, almost said without saying that he'll have a job forever because it almost doesn't matter who he fights or what the result is. And that's kind of true, Luke. But this furious comeback, which I thought he was going to get a submission late. I mean, there were dark moments there for Do Bronx. Luke, there was like 15 straight shots to the back of the head that set it up. And there were eye pokes, and Chandler held on to the fence for long stretches. Keith Peterson was standing over them as Chandler was just elbowing the shit out of the back of Charles.
Keith Peterson had a bad night.
Like, I guess what I'm asking is it fair to call, Chandler fun dirty, or is he dirty as shit as well, even though we love his moxie?
That's a great question. I think what you can say is this. Best case scenario, he fought very undisciplined and should have been punished for it. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, he is an outrageously dirty fighter. You'll recall Dustin Poirier has complained.
He hates him.
Well, why? He complained after their fight that he was fish hooking him.
Yes.
As for folks who don't know,
in
what
the
fish
wound,
hooking,
right?
No, in his mouth.
In his mouth, okay.
He actually said, "Get your fingers out of my mouth." He was fish hooking him. So you can decide out there which interpretation is correct, but neither of them are good. Neither is exonerating. And I tend to think after this long, it's a little hard to be like, this was strictly a problem of being undisciplined. Dude, and also, I will say this too. You can get on these guys for breaking the rules, and they do. But if there's no punishment, BC, and you're Michael Chandler, why the fuck would you stop? He's not going to stop the bout. He's not going to warn you. He's not going to take a point. Fucking fish hook him.
Here's
Seriously.
what's crazy. Chandler only got that takedown because he wildly missed a right hand after hurting Oliveira, and then he kind of fell into it and fell into top position there. But, if they got the finish after that, that would have been controversial as shit. It would have been. If it was directly after that.
It would have been insanely controversial. The referees don't enforce the rules. It drives me nuts.
I do like when Joseph Rogan calls him Berserker, though, by the way. I like that.
I had the commentary muted during that.
During a pay-per-view? You can't do that shit.
During the co-main event, I definitely did. I didn't hear the commentary until I went back and watched the main event the second time afterwards. So.
Obviously, Chandler's fun. Obviously, he's got a long track record of making huge, crazy brawls. He looks really small against Oliveira, though. Did you notice that? He looks small for this division suddenly. I know there was...
Chandler?
Yeah, I know he was talking about
when
going
they
to
interviewed
70.
him after the fight, and he's standing there, and he's got what they call capped delts. That's your shoulder, and he's got these fucking... Yes. He's got He-Man shoulders,
Yeah,
bro.
he's insane. I
cannot believe his physical condition.
We'll see him in fun fights against
also,
anybody.
You didn't ask this, but we've had 6 fights with him in UFC now, 2 and 4.
Yes, but against all elite competition, and it's all firecrackers.
Totally. Now you have a good sense of how good he is. Is he the best lightweight in the world? No. On the right night, he potentially could be, but more often than not, he'll lose to the best guy. But to your point, he's going to be a fucking fireworks every single time.
I'd love to see him against Max eventually.
Yeah.
And he did call out Conor again.
The worst call out I've ever heard.
I don't know.
Whose Conor call out was worse, him or Buckley?
Okay, not as bad as Buckley in that case. Let's go to Oliveira quickly. So he wins his 23rd UFC fight. So that puts him into a second-place tie behind Jim Miller, who extended his lead to 27. But think about this, Luke. Oliveira's 35. He's very much in the mix. Might get the next title shot after the champion defends it in January, if that happens. And already Oliveira has the most finishes in UFC history, the most submissions. Dude, if he stays active, he may be the one who takes that most wins and kind of pushes it out there and extends it a little bit, where it's not like Jim Miller or Magny or Arlovsky are kind of lingering and still hanging on in some cases to get that. Is he already on his way to not just being Hall of Famer, but being considered like a true legend? If he retires as the all-time winningest fighter on top of that, I don't think I've ever framed it that way in my head.
Yeah.
But we're going to have to talk about him as one of the greatest ever.
Yeah, it's one thing to get up 20 wins in the UFC, and a lot of those are against unranked guys, or a lot of those are just mid-card guys. And those fighters themselves were never champions. Arlovsky was in a different era, but Cerrone was not, and certainly Jim Miller was not. I'll say this. I don't know if he'll occupy the space you're talking about, except for two conditions. One, he recaptures the title.
Yeah.
Or gets the BMF title. I actually feel like if he gets the BMF title, it almost becomes a coronation of the very thing you're talking about.
Okay.
Right? It becomes like, what prize do you give a guy who does that at the elite level? You give him the BMF title. Now, of course, you have to earn it, but you see what I'm saying? He will have earned the kind of prize beyond, again, the biggest one would be recapturing the weight class title.
Sure.
But I guess what I'm saying is, absent recapturing a title, even if he gets these wins against ranked guys, I just don't know if the story is going to follow him in the way you're describing.
Crazy, though. If you had most wins, most finishes, most submissions, you were a champion, you were beloved, like they make murals of him in Brazil.
Yeah.
Everyone, it seems, no matter where you're from, loves this guy as instant entertainment at the very least. And I mean, he's still got some big fights to make. Like, so we didn't give Stipe his due in the last two topics, from the idea that he did retire in the cage afterwards at 42. And I kind of wanted to, like, we know who we all kind of think is in the upper room, the top five, I like to say, of the true GOATs. And, you know, we talk about that ad nauseum. Sometimes we whisper the idea of what would be our 5 to 10. Is it automatically like Jose Aldo and you know, Cormier level guys, Randy Couture in that area? Like, what do we do with Stipe right now in terms? I mean,
let's talk
like,
this
not
out.
everybody
Let's talk this out.
deserves a ranking, but
let's talk it out. Let's talk it out. That's such a great question, BC. Okay, in their upper room, in no particular order. We don't have to fight it out.
Sure.
Jones, DJ, GSP, Silva,
Fedor.
Okay, I would put Aldo there, but fine.
And Habib's on the outside looking in.
Okay,
right?
so those are the 5. I would have put Aldo there, but you would put Aldo at 6. No
Sure.
worse, right? Aldo, Habib. Who else?
Randy.
Amanda.
Yes.
Where's 10? That leaves you one more.
DC.
Now,
I think DC's like 6, basically.
Okay,
I mean, him and
now
Habib are
DC's claim to fame is he has titles in 2 weight classes.
Yes.
But he did lose to Stipe twice.
And lost to John twice, but only lost to those 2.
That's it. So he would be Stipe under the way we just discussed it. He would be probably at 11 or so, outside the top 10.
Sure.
Now I think people might disagree with that. I'll say this: he's bubble top 10.
Well, he has
Bubble
2
top 10.
reigns, which is great. He has 2 wins over Cormier, and only
That's
Jones
big.
has beat him, which
That's
is
really
great.
big. And he has a win over Francis. Granted, different kind, but still.
He has the most title defenses total?
Yes, 3.
Before?
Mm-hmm.
And the win streak that he had, where he made his name, was largely against former champions.
Yeah,
you know, of course you've got Arlovsky, but you got Mark Hunt on there. You've got like, dude, the wealth of who he beat is impressive as shit.
You won't respect some of these names. I know Phil DeFries, by the way, is like kicking ass over in KSW.
Yes, in Poland, right?
And,
or in Russia. Is that
Stipe beat him in 43 seconds. Okay,
is that Russia or Poland?
That's Poland. Shane De Rosario, who's tragically passed away, Stipe polished him off. Roy Nelson, Gabriel Gonzaga, who was a murderer for a time, but then Mark Hunt, Andrei Arlovsky, Fabricio Verdum, Alistair Overeem, JDS, Francis Ngannou, then Cormier twice. Yeah, that's pretty fucking good.
And when you do that to Verdum as UFC champion too, that's not like old ass Verdum. Like these
he took the title, and by the way, did it in Brazil
while walking backwards.
Yeah.
Like while running
Polished
backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, I'm fine with that. So he's like 10 to 15. Not that again,
15.
everyone needs a ranking there, but so that bubble area around the 5 of Habib, Aldo, and DC. That's a tough area right there.
I mean, that's a secondary tier.
Why don't people respect DC like they should? To me, he's like automatic, like 6th, 7th at worst, and people think he's just an also ran in the champions.
They kind of treat him like a big goofy brother, you know.
But the amount of name wins that he has and the dominance behind some of them,
dude. Again, and if you watched his Strikeforce run live,
oh my God,
like his fight with Josh Barnett, like that was a very, very viable Josh Barnett as an opponent.
So was the Bigfoot win at that point. Bigfoot win.
Nah, you know what's funny? Cormier told me about something. So I did a show in 2012 called MMA Uncensored Live. It was on Spike TV at the time, and we had Cormier as our guest, and he was still fighting at heavyweight that time because he was over in Strikeforce. He didn't need to go to light heavyweight in UFC, and I'll never forget this. He had come off he had just come off the Bigfoot knockout, or right around that time. And I remember we had him in studio, and we were off camera. We were like, "Hey, are you ever going to fight 205?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to have to. Eventually I'm going to move there." He goes, "But I love fighting heavyweights." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Dude, I'm just going to keep it real with you." He goes, "They are so fucking slow."
Yes.
That's exactly
his
what he said.
boxing against Bigfoot was ridiculous.
He said when he fought Bigfoot, he could see everything coming. So I agree with you. Like, DC was the fucking man in his day.
I wish he got more love in that historic sense. But let's show that photo of Chandler got 2 slams in the final minute that really, and he yelled like "fuck" as he did it or something crazy.
Well,
I mean, that's a great photo.
He was probably like fiddlesticks.
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
You know.
That's gotta hurt, dude. Right? Like
yeah. I mean, if you're Oliveira, you can look.
You tuck your chin a little, but
you tuck your chin. You see how he keeps like close contact with his chin. The problem you don't want to have is your back of your head to ricochet.
Yes.
So you can notice he doesn't quite have ear to ear contact, but pretty close.
The second one was hard,
super hard.
Shit. Oh,
but I mean,
damn.
Charles Oliveira. Once he's on your back, you're in trouble.
Dude, Chandler's an animal.
Also,
Chandler's an animal. Like we don't like. Should we put the Arturo Gatti stamp on him and above Gaethje and Poirier and those other guys?
That's such an interesting question. I don't know how to answer that. The Arturo Gatti stamp. That's a great.
Dana did it. Dana did it on Saturday.
How high did he achieve Arturo Gatti?
Won a world title.
At what weight class?
And he 135, I believe.
Okay, so lightweight.
And then he, and he fought. He lost to De La Hoya on pay-per-view. Lost to Floyd on pay-per-view. Like he went to a very
losing to Floyd. I mean,
he went to a very high commercial level. Is what I'm trying to say too. And he made the Hall of Fame, which was controversial to a certain degree.
That's not a bad comparison, bro. The Arturo Gatti of MMA. That's a hell of a compliment, too.
But you'd have to put him above Gaethje, though. That's what I'm saying. To me, Gaethje, even above Robbie Lawler, is my favorite action star of all time.
Why wouldn't he be Ward?
Why wouldn't?
Could one guy be Gotti and the other guy be Ward?
Well, I kind of want to basically just put it to all these lightweights of this era. Like basically that group of Chandler, Poirier, Gaethje. Who else should you throw in? Like, is there a fourth Mount Rushmore?
Eddie Alvarez.
Eddie was in some
Eddie was
bangers.
In some fucking scraps.
I mean, Hooker's now
Poirier.
Hooker's been putting a few together lately.
Yeah, I mean, all
that
those
Hooker
guys,
Poirier fight.
They're all dogs.
Is that the best fight in Apex history?
Hooker Poirier.
Yeah,
it's up there. It's up there. I was going to say this too. Credit to Chandler.
Yes,
he got choked out from the back against Poirier. Fucking Charles Oliveira had his back for minutes at a time and did not get submitted. He clearly worked on it, and it worked.
He's building like a Randy Couture level love, affair, and respect with the American people. Like it's like Michael Chandler.
Yeah,
they love the shit out of this guy, as they should. I mean, he gives all.
He gets clowned online.
True,
but yes, in person they seem to like. He's action packed. What's not to like?
Did you know that Do Bronx and Jon Jones are now like lovers? Like they love each other. These guys.
I think they're both like. Wow, what is up with all the Jones clips dying on us?
It's very
okay. We're gonna do this.
Quando eu citei que o Charlie venceu, eu fiquei mais completo ainda. E pra fazer isso agora, chegou a minha hora também.
Go.
Dude, I saw all week they were like all over each other. Like, just a mutual admiration.
I saw that they prayed together, so maybe it's just some religious camaraderie. I don't know.
Maybe they just respect.
As someone who doesn't go to church, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Let's go to Bo Nickel now. He goes the full 15 minutes with Paul Craig. Gets a wide unanimous decision victory. Gets booed though. And then they're chanting underrated and overrated, excuse me, and he does not go for a single takedown attempt. Now, Dana would ultimately be harsher than they were on the broadcast, but what is your take? Did Bo Nickel deserve, considering he's in there against a bigger and experienced opponent, deserve all this negativity for the performance we actually saw?
Maybe all the negativity, no. No, I don't. I think that was a little much. I mean, chanting overrated is a little much. The fan base has clearly decided that however good he is, the promotion has forced Nickel on them, and they have been forced a Nickel that they don't think is actually nearly as good as the UFC would like them to believe, and they have reacted very negatively to that.
Even with his MAGA, they turned.
The thing about MAGA is like, in the current, I'm being serious, like in the current landscape, the MAGA thing can get you some likes and it can cover for a lot. But at the end of the day, dude, like if they feel like you're a fraud in some kind of way.
They think you're Colby, you're Colby.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Like there's plenty of people who are MAGA who can't stand Colby. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's not a decisive factor. But the point I wanted to make was, BC, I'm a little bit of two minds. And this is why I'm going to say where I'm at, but I really am curious to hear where you're at on this one. So on the one hand, Bo Nickel in his, 7th pro fight, beat a guy that beat Magomed Ankalaev. Bo Nickel beat a guy that beat Jamal Hill.
I know they only said it 15 times on the broadcast.
Bo Nickel beat a guy that beat Nikita Krylov and did it without any wrestling or jiu-jitsu at all. He did it with his striking. That's pretty impressive. And he blanked him, 30-27, rocked his shit in the 3rd round, right? Had him had him kind of covering up with his hand because it hurt so bad. And so on one level, I'm like, that is great. It's also great if you're Bo Nickel that you got a full 3 rounds experience because you probably needed that just to get it, to level up to the next kind of place that you're going to go to. And again, I want to emphasize it. He didn't beat him with his A game or even his A plus his B game, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. He beat him with his C game. But here's the problem, BC. It's definitely his C game.
Yeah.
His striking left a lot to be desired.
Yeah, like the only negative
is no
is
jab.
Bo acted like he had just put on a clinic. That was the only thing I didn't like about it.
I care less about stuff like that, but to your point, that's a fair observation. But the thing that really got to me was I was like, dude, you're having trouble closing the distance, and so you're winging these overhands. And eventually he got a little closer, and it worked, but it took him like 10, 12 minutes to really get to a place where they could really find the mark.
Yeah.
And like, where's the rest of the game? Like, there's no foundational game to really close distance, cut the ring off. You know what I mean? Like, work behind the jab. Like, how many jabs did he throw? 3 at most in 15 minutes?
A lot of looping lefts.
It's a lot of overhand lefts and overhand rights. That's not going to get the job done up the food chain.
Yeah.
So everyone is like, oh, he sucks. I'm like, guys, he didn't use the very best parts of his game.
Well, it's one of those, I'll tell you exactly what it is.
All right,
he's going to benefit from this in the long term because where else are you going to get that exactly what happened? 15 minutes of a tense and fight that wasn't close in terms of the scores, but it was a lot closer in terms of, the back and forth than what we saw. Whereas if he took Craig down and let's say he did get an early submission and look dominant in that regard, we would still be saying, okay, well, what about the striking? And we need more evidence of it. He would need more evidence himself, in my opinion, because you can only really gain this in the fights with these stakes. Now, I guess the only negative is that he doesn't look like he's ready to destroy, the elites and fight Khamzat tomorrow or fight for the title. It's a little bit humbling in that regard. And maybe I didn't love some of the, the quotes of Bo or the way he acted after. I mean, he wasn't like cocky or, idiotic about it. He was just a little too maybe full of what he accomplished there. I think this is something he accomplished the time that he gave himself that's going to be so super valuable and help him. But I think it told everybody, including Dana, who I don't know if you heard this, it was almost a little bit harsh from Dana, who was like, yeah, the kid needs a lot of work. And he showed us that tonight. You know what I mean? It was, and that's not wrong, to be fair. But Bo's going to hurt PR-wise for whatever that's worth for a while until he goes in there again and actually shows us. The thing is, how quickly can he improve that striking? That's what I want to find out because it wasn't up to the level we need. I mean,
let me ask you
Craig
this.
was kind of surviving, wasn't throwing a lot himself. You know what I mean?
We're talking about could Stipe beat a guy inside the top 15? And there's no doubt in my mind if Bo Nickel's using his A and B game, he also can beat guys inside the top 15. But the question is, what is the right move? BC, let me read you 11 to 15. The question is not whether Bo Nickel could beat them. The question is whether any of these fights make sense given what he showed and what he'd be up against. Don't say anything until I read them all the way through. 11 is Paulo Costa. 12 is Jack Hermanson. 13, Anthony Hernandez. 14, Bullet Magomedov. 15, Michel Pereira. I think he could beat a few of those guys. I don't know if it's a good idea or not to put him in there. In fact, I think it's not. I think he needs to fight outside the top 15.
Hermanson is probably the perfect matchup because that could be a really tough night for him. But it would also show us a lot if whichever method he used to victory, right? If it was all A game and he looked dominant again, or if he really had to work for it and show us new layers. I mean, you can't substitute for what you learn in close fights against tough veterans. You can't, there's no substitute for that. So if losses shouldn't kill you in this sport, even with the hype he's received, this was a comeback down to earth moment, however you want to, receive it. So it depends. It depends how aggressive he wants to be. But Dana was almost like scolding him for being too aggressive or too confident in himself in that regard. So maybe he needs one more in between. But 28, you're comfortable at the pace though, right?
I think he'll be fine, and I think he's going to at least contend for a title. But, Anthony Hernandez is sitting at 13. I think that's a bad matchup right now.
Yes, I
wouldn't
like
make a fight like that at all.
No.
And so for that reason, I'm like, give him somebody like Roman Kopylov.
Yeah.
Who's got some takedown defense, who could light him up on the feet.
That's the level that we need.
That's the test I want to see, and then we'll see where he goes from there.
All right, 42-year-old Jim Miller? Or was it 41?
41, I think.
41-year-old Jim Miller did Jim Miller things in his 40s, which is sub people out and look efficient as hell, winning his 27th UFC fight. Afterwards, he would say his desire is to get 5 more total fights in the octagon, which would be 50. But he said there'd be nothing that could keep him after that. That's his goal. Luke, that could be 2 years if he's active, but so it doesn't have to win those, right? He just wants the appearances. He wants to get 50 appearances.
I'm sure he wants to win, but yeah, to your point.
Is there something that could or should be done to give him a fun matchup to really continue to play on what he's accomplishing, which is rare? Or is it still just kind of mid-level fights? Way to go. It's cool. But is there should they be rewarding him more?
I think if you're this far, you should give him exactly what he needs. He's a great test for whoever you're going to put him up against.
Yes.
Right? I mean, to your point, it wasn't like he went out there and got his ass kicked against Damon Jackson on Saturday. He polished him off with
ease,
technical ease.
But most of his wins in this run have been like that, where you're just like.
And Joe Rogan actually, I thought, did make a point that was good here. The guy's never had surgery. You're that far along, motherfucker. I've had orthopedic surgery.
Yeah.
Like, how is that possible? He's never had it. It's after Lyme disease and everything. Folks forget he was a wrestler at Virginia Tech. That's Division I. He has been a technical black belt for as long. He and his brother Dan Miller for as long as I can remember. That was a phenomenal win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it just seems to me, it's like, dude, you've got the apex. You got 1 million guys on the bubble. Jim Miller's going to be a great test for all of them. You can kill 2 birds with 1 stone and make everybody happy. Yes, 2 thumbs up.
All right, there you go. Is there anything else on that undercard that you feel is worth mentioning here?
They brought the old gloves back, and you had some knockouts. The Brahmai
thumbs
knockout.
up to the old gloves. The only problem, Dana said, is they don't have enough old gloves.
That's right.
To put it on the Contender Series or Fight Nights anymore.
So they're going to have to do the new gloves on the Fight Nights, and then the old gloves on the pay-per-views.
You really, Jon Jones played a role in this, definitely.
You think so?
Yes.
Let's ask Long Island Luke. Long Island Luke.
100% Jon
so?
Jones is the reason.
The timeline.
Wait, hold on. Is he the only reason, or is he part of the reason?
No, I do think John brought it up, and then they went, ooh, and these stats are backing this up too.
Oh,
yeah,
here's what I think. I think that Long Island Luke. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. I think the UFC brass got spooked by the fact that all the knockouts had declined basically across every division except one.
And facial damage. People don't talk about that.
And facial damage. And so I can accept that John may have been the straw that broke the camel's back. I don't buy that it's because of him in that one singular way.
I don't know. I mean, you kind of just said it there in your first answer too. They were leaning that way, and then John was the reason. But to me, that's still John being the reason.
Okay. Well, no, but I mean, if they're spooked, it's a precondition.
Yeah, I don't know. I do feel like John definitely. Think they moved the event from Vegas to Cali that time.
I had a famous MMA manager call me after that event, being like, "Dude, what the fuck is that?"
Yeah,
and I'm like,
during Christmas week.
I'm like, bro, you tell me.
Wow. All right, Luke. Then, and what was the name of the fighter who beat Veronica Hardy in that first fight?
Eduardo Moura.
Eduardo Moura looked good. Yeah,
because Veronica Hardy's been a bit of a I'll call it something of a hot streak.
Yeah, in the power and accuracy.
And Moura took a tour.
Moura's
she took a tour.
She has a swagger. Luke.
Also, the women's fight on the main card wasn't terrible. The Araujo.
No, it turned into something. Yeah.
And Karine Silva fight. Yeah, it was fine.
What about that other guy? You like him?
Hoofy?
Yeah.
By the way, I didn't realize we were calling him James Longtop. I didn't realize he was from Peru. So it's James Yontop, or as my wife would say, John Top.
Yeah, John Top had a nice firearm on his cheek.
Dude,
looked like me on our Halloween episode.
Let me go back a step. He did not have a firearm on his cheek. He had an Uzi. Dude, he was literally DJ Too Cheesy.
Yeah.
Like
that
in
shit
real
is
life.
Too cheesy.
Also,
yeah.
he was tough as shit.
Yes, he was.
Hoofy, I do like his game. I mean, the look away fucking uppercut was so sick.
GHB, that's one guy, right?
Okay, but dude, he's got razzle dazzle and then nothing else. It's like you need to build a jab and cleaner entries and not just wait for a guy to fucking overstep and then crash into him.
Long Island Luke, you acted like this 309 pay-per-view card was awesome top to bottom. Are we missing anything?
There was a couple. David Onama taking on.
That was a freaking war.
That was Romero.
War.
That was
they
a
both
good fight.
got their ass kicked in that one.
Oban Elliott knocking out Basil Hafez.
Thank you. That's the missing point, Luke. Oban Elliott looked like a man after that. Dude, Basil Hafez is a badass.
Yes, he is.
And he sunned him, Luke.
And by the way, Elliott was losing. He was 1-1 on one judge's scorecard.
It was a good fight.
2-0.
Yeah, it was a tough fight.
And then he finished him off in the third.
He's got swagger too, man.
He seems like a guy worth keeping your eye on. Very
He's
promising.
got style. That's what all the girls say.
He's got grace.
Luke, you know what's hard to do at our age is find clothes that fits perfectly but that also flatters you. It's one thing to make it feel good, but does it look good? You know what I'm saying? It's not easy, Luke, although I've been noticing that fit of yours today. Body for days. Wow.
I have body for days only in certain kinds of clothes that I wear, BC.
That's true. That is true.
I need something that fits nice, makes me feel good, snug in the right places, loose in the other ones. And BC, one of our friends here on the show today has provided exactly that for me.
You may have seen their logo inside the Octagon and UFC pay-per-views, and True Classic is the real deal. Holyfield, when you talk about the fit, the feel, the fabric, you know, it's comfortable clothes, but high quality clothes. So Luke, right now I'm wearing the t-shirt underneath. I'm wearing these jeans that just fit so well because, you know, being on the train and the subway isn't always the most comfortable conditions. But not only am I staying fit and hip, Luke, I'm staying so comfortable and loose with everything I'm feeling here from True Classic. I wear the workout pants all the time.
Oh, they're the best.
Like I get called out like, hey, maybe you should wash those. But the thing is, it just fits so well.
It does. And listen, let's talk about some brass tacks. You can get these things in 3, 6, and 9 packs. You can get them. By the way, there's over 4 million customers and 200,000 reviews. And by the way, 100% perfect fit guarantee and easy returns. That's just brass tacks. But BC, as I mentioned it before, the whole line of clothing works. So you can mix and match stuff. Like I like this shirt with those pants, and I like this underwear with that. You know, whatever. You can put all those different products together. Works for fall, works for winter.
Yes.
All the different
The
seasons.
earth tone colors are just like they're power colors, right?
It's just a great way. And the most important part is not only is it easy to return if it doesn't work for whatever reason, or you can get a bunch together, they've got a premium feel. That's the part that I think about the most. It feels like I'm wearing something
How many trendy
super
stores,
expensive, but it's not.
You put a piece of clothing on, you're like, oh, I'll get about 3 washes out of this, and the quality will be gone. Not True Classic. It's got that true feel. And Luke, my wife's a tough critic, but when I walk around in that True Classic t-shirt, she's like, what, you been in the gym? You know what I'm saying?
She's also probably telling you to shower, but yes.
That is also something that happens. So we know that the holidays are here, and True Classics ultra comfortable, perfect fitting essentials make for the perfect gift for you and the men in your life, MK viewer. So if you're ready to upgrade your closet today, shop now and unlock big savings during True Classics huge holiday sale. Go to our MK exclusive link here, trueclassic.com/combat with a K. You can see it on the screen. trueclassic.com/combat with a K. Please support our show. And this is stuff I'm wearing right now because it fits great. It looks great.
Me too.
And I'm trying everything to look 5, 10, 15 years younger. That's why I get these fades, Luke. Okay. That's why I get these fades.
I get fades too. I mean, True Classic helps more than the fade, but both do some good work.
There you go. Thank you so much. I like to consider myself a True Classic, Luke, just in case you're wondering.
Are you?
Yeah. And in every way, I think.
Are you a classic in like a good way, or like
I'm an inspirational tale?
You're a classic in the
life.
sense of like, you know, like a 1940s car that's just been, you know, kept alive in Cuba or something.
What did Sean Porter say about Tyson Paul? You know, like one of them is a sports car. You know what I mean?
Ferrari,
I'm like a 2020 orange Subaru Crosstrek. That's what I'm like. All right, let's go to topic number 4, Luke. And hey, before we get into Tyson versus Paul, I got one more for you in the MMA space. It's UFC 310. It's finalized. We all know it's going down December 7th in Las Vegas, the last big one of the year. But with Bilal Muhammad pulling out, we had to figure out what's going on with that main and co-main. The UFC has decided, let's go to the full screen here of what we're getting here. The new main event will be Alexander Pantoja defending his flyweight title against UFC newcomer Kai Asakura. And your co-main event, no interim title on the line, but it is a number 1 contenders fight as Shavkat Rakhmonov and the opportunistic here, Ian Machado Gary, are going to put it together. Luke, Cyril Gane, Alexander Volkov, not a bad fight. But look at this fun slop on the bottom. Bryce Mitchell against Crone Gracie. Sign me up. And Nate the Train in the UFC against Korean Superboy.
You got the all flat earth championship between Mitchell and Gracie, as you indicated.
Dude, the winners should fight each other, right? They're all featherweights. Imagine, let's do it.
Yeah, you could do that.
Let's do a donk tournament here. Luke,
this is the rematch between, but one more time, very quickly, it's the rematch between Gane and Volkov. They've already fought before.
Yeah, Gane box circles around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, Luke, the question here is, what is your grade for the new letter grade for the new 310 pay-per-view?
Solid B, something like that. Solid B. One more time, throw it up, and I'll tell you why, if I can. I apologize.
One more time. Let's hit it.
Hey, here's why. The main event has no casual fan buzz, but is an excellent flyweight.
I was going to ask you if that's risky, considering 301 in Brazil was like a dead pay-per-view with Pantoja in the main event, even though all his fights have been great and the division's on fire.
It is. Listen, they are where they are. I don't think they have anybody else they could pull in. They just this is where they are.
Yeah.
Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Gary is fucking awesome.
That's a great.
I want to talk about it in just a second. Gane versus Volkov 2 is not all that interesting, but not terrible, and has some value for the heavyweight division. And then Mitchell and Gracie is just going to be, I mean, just donktacular. And then the last one's going to be a banger. So it has plenty of value. To me, thank you very much, Long Island Luke, a solid B. I want to talk about that co-main event for just a second, if I may.
I mean, B cups are still good.
It's like, where is he go? Oh, right.
Yeah.
BC. Shavkat Rakhmonov, undefeated. So now I'm gonna put away the boner for Taporia.
Okay, I don't think you
and
can
here
take
comes the Rakhmonov boner, which you don't mind that one as much for reasons I don't quite understand. But
you know who's got a Rakhmonov boner is Laura Senko loves Shavkat Rakhmonov.
She and I have texted about it before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Debating who has a bigger fight boner.
Okay, it's getting awkward. It got awkward.
Get a little weird.
Yeah.
All right, but here's the point I wanted to make. The guy, undefeated and nothing but finishes, has a title shot. The guy who is going to fight for the title gets injured, and rather than sit out and say, I'm going to wait for my title, he says, you know what? Bring on all the bozos you can. And Ian Gary's not a bozo. I'm just saying.
Oh, not only that, he dunked on the rest of the division. Did you see the tweet? Can we see the tweet, please?
Yeah, let's see the tweet here. I'll read it out. I don't have my glasses. I'm very disappointed in our division. Bilal, Leon, Kamaru, Jack, Sean, thank you so much. Brady there. You've all let the fans down. The only one who backed up his words is Ian. And I respect that. But make no mistake, Ian Gary, I'm coming for your O, and we'll fight for the belt after. Now, his manager obviously wrote this.
He should have been like, I'm coming for your wife,
too. If you follow Rakhmonov on Instagram, all he does is like train, live a simple, peaceful life.
Who's his manager?
I thought it was Danny Rubenstein.
It is Danny.
Oh, shout out to Danny Rube. Short of me making fun of his hairline that time, him and I have always been like, yeah.
He ignored my last text. I think he's bitter at me about something. I'm not sure what.
Great wrestler at OU, that guy.
Yeah, no hair, though. Just zippy hair going on up there. He didn't return my last text. Sorry, Danny. You got to return my text. I won't kill you on air. The point I want to make is I have all the respect in the world for Ian Gary, who went from fighting a very difficult opponent in Joaquin Buckley, changed date, changed locations, now takes on the even tougher, more proven Rakhmonov. And Rakhmonov said, title shot, I don't have it. I'm not going to sit on my ass and wait for it. Bring them up, line them up, and I'm going to knock them down. Dude, shouts to Ian Gary, shouts to Rakhmonov. It's the best fight arguably the best fight on that card. The main event could be very good. But it's so important that people take risks at this stage.
Dude, Shavkat had no reason to do this outside of I think I'm going to slaughter everyone and then wear parts of their body on my next ring walk anyway. Yeah. So title, no title, whatever. But for as low as Ian Gary's PR stock was with the whole cuck thing and everything, and I know a lot of
the dumbest controversy made by the dumbest people in the industry. Yes,
but don't forget there were press conferences where every fighter was seemingly dunking on him and his wife in some way.
Yeah,
like,
it's the worst industry in America.
It got out of control. What has he done since then? Behave like a fighter and say things like he says in this video right here.
The UFC called us 15 minutes ago and said, will you fight Shavkat December 7th? I am going to say yes. I believe that it's far more important to talk to you guys and that you guys know first. Can you say, you guys? Hey guys. So now, we're in Phuket, Thailand for a chunky southpaw getting ready for Joaquin Buckley. I'm going to change it all. Fight a week earlier, on December 7th in Las Vegas, which is where I wanted to fight, when I wanted to fight. The world will only be able to say that I'm a gamer. They will only be able to say that this guy will fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. And the perfect example is give me the boogeyman at the welterweight division and I'll stand in there in 3 weeks' notice and I'll find a way to beat him.
Respect.
That's how you deliver a PR message. We talk about like Jon Jones, and I don't love like the angles he's taking and the way he's talking about Aspinall. He's just making us say the word duck. This is the exact opposite of that. I mean, that's how you want fighters to behave. Go they knocked or the phone call came in. Are you ready to find out how great you are? He said, the fuck I am.
Can't believe that the phony incel controversy bears no resemblance to the actual reality.
You never wanted to break that down on the show.
What is there to break down? There's nothing to break down. Yeah, it was fucking dumb as shit. The sport's already dumb as shit. We don't need to go to the dumber sides to get into the other parts of it. But listen, I don't like his chances against Shavkat Rakhmonov. I think Rakhmonov's probably going to finish him off. But the fact that he is willing to change opponents, go a week earlier against fucking Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ian Gary has earned a lot of respect from me this week. Not that it matters, but I'm just telling you, I have been very impressed by his boxing.
I am completely in on this behavior and him believing, and let's find out. So Luke, this replaces, though, pulls him off the card December 14th in Tampa, the final fight night card of the year, the final UFC fighting event of the year. And it's going to be Colby Covington as the report, as the replacement against Joaquin Buckley in that 5-round main event. What do you think about that? It's not Colby trying to fly in and steal the show on pay-per-view. Yeah. He's got too many losses lately. What do you think of this matchup? Is he a threat to slow down Buckley's momentum, you think?
He could. It's a good test for Buckley. The last interview I did was with Buckley. This was, I don't know, about a month ago or so. And he actually told me in the interview he would love to fight Colby Covington. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think the thumbnail is about that I put up for that because he was so interested in it. And then they made the Ian Gary fight. And, of course, that's an even bigger one. This is actually not as big a fight, I think, or at least that one to me was more interesting because about what the future told us and how that part is unknown. We've kind of seen the highlight of Colby's career, and now he's on the downside. I don't know what the UFC did to make it worth his while to take this fight. Probably something good for him. So that's fine. But I actually think that Colby, for as washed as he is not so mega washed that he can't win this fight or to bare minimum make it interesting. Buckley has shown us real ability, but he's also shown us that like a lot of it outside the striking is a little bit more recent and a little bit still shaky at times.
This could be the test for that.
So this is a great test. 5 rounds. I like that even more. I'm assuming it's going to be 5 rounds because it's a main event.
Sure.
So for that reason, I actually like, I'm not going to say I like these fights better or something like that. They all have their kind of charm, but it's a good fight for Rakhmonov. If Gary wins, he looks like $1 million. If Colby wins, that's his best win in I don't know how long.
That would revive him.
He would be beating a relevant contender. When was the last time he beat a relevant contender? And then for Buckley,
a couple presidents ago.
Exactly. And then a win for Buckley over a big name. It's a lot of wins to be had here.
This is good news all around, okay? I don't think that 310 pay-per-view is going to be,
it's going to do bad.
It'll do bad, but that's a hardcore. There's a lot of hardcore stuff going on there that I'm into.
Like I said, dude, after this past weekend of slop, I'm okay.
Well, let's get into it.
Okay
Topic
with that.
number 5 is the big slop that went down in the big AT&T Stadium outside of Dallas there. Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, 8 rounds. Wow. So here's the deal. Jake Paul outpoints Mike Tyson in this largely pointless 8-round exhibition, or pro wrestling, if you will, despite Mike Tyson having pushed for this to be a sanctioned bout. So, Luke, it broke records on Netflix. We'll get into all that. But while it might seem easy for everyone out there to be like, what the hell were you guys expecting with a 58-year-old? How much of a stain do you think this is, if any, to boxing, considering that 65 million households globally watched this fight live, and this turned out to be nothing more than scripted entertainment between good friends? And I'm standing on that after what we saw. Is this a major FU to boxing now that you got all these casuals tuned into your sport? What say you on this?
I don't think it's bad for boxing in any kind of meaningful sense. Right? It's not like you had the results that we had and then people were like, you know what, I was going to give boxing a chance, but now I'm just not. I just doesn't, like, I was going to watch Zurdo Ramirez at the Latino card in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, but you know what? Fuck you guys. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
I will say, if you wanted to argue that if the fight had been great in whatever version that would have meant, could that have gotten people converted? Even then, I'm somewhat skeptical of that, but sure, that would have been a lot nicer. I would have been happier to talk about that, but I don't think boxing suffers other than to say, did they miss an opportunity, or what was an opportunity missed, I should say, to potentially turn people into more dedicated fans? You could make that argument. However, the co-main event was fucking awesome.
And 50 million people were watching that.
No, that's not right.
50 million households.
Households.
Not mine, because half of that fight was frozen. Thank you, Netflix. I had to take, but to be honest, I was doing a live blog for CBS. I had to watch most of that night on an illegal stream because it was the only stream that would hold.
Right. I had to watch an illegal stream at times. Netflix fucked that up. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I will say that I don't look at it in these existential terms. But I think for me, I did have a couple of takeaways, BC.
I hope they all involve stains, because this is bullshit, dude.
First of all, dude, I have seen all of Jake Paul's fights, and I've been to many of them. Jake Paul's fights are fucking boring. They're fucking boring. The first Woodley fight was okay-ish. The second fight was terrible until that late knockout. The Fury fight sucked. The Silva fight was
Fury fight was at least tense and competitive.
Competitive. I didn't say it was good. You can have competitive and not be all that good. The Mike Perry fight was a demolition. So
Nate and Anderson Silva were kind of the same. Were okay, right?
They were fine. They weren't. Okay. What's your favorite highlight reel? Like one time he knocked Diaz down in round 5, or the one time he knocked Silva down. Like beyond that, show me your. Dude, I can think of a million Bam Rodriguez highlights that have nothing to do with knocking anybody down, although there's some of those too. This is my point. Like there's nothing to these.
Yes.
Here's what got me, and we'll talk about this, I think, in a little more detail, but I want to introduce it to the conversation. After the fight is over, my first read was like, Jake Paul sucks so bad, he couldn't even finish a 58-year-old guy. Not that he couldn't do it, but I don't think he wanted to get hit trying and to look bad trying, and so therefore he kind of pumped the brakes. You could make that argument, or you could make the argument that he had just had mercy on the guy and he didn't want to finish him off. Either way, in the post-fight press conference, he basically admits to like carrying the guy,
God.
which is so fucking bad. You can carry a guy when they're too tough for their own good, but as Stephen Bredman Edwards pointed out, if you're going to carry a guy, the point is to preserve their dignity.
Yes.
You betray that by mentioning that
Yes.
the post-fight press conference. But more to the point is there's a more sinister thing going on here. Jake Paul is not good at boxing. He's better than, obviously celebrities, but he's not good. So a lot of what he does is fucking sandbagging, okay? And people were bitter at me when I was like, dude, finish fucking Mike off. They're like, he's 58. I'm like, guys, stop this. Stop this now.
Please stop this.
You cannot sandbag and then at the other end simultaneously say, I didn't want to do anything because I have mercy on him.
I'm going to fuck him up, Ariel.
Yeah, hold on.
I'm going to fuck him up, Ariel.
Irrespective of the fact that you're just betraying the dignity you were trying to preserve, independent of that, when you say it's okay for Jake Paul to do that, you are saying you don't have to do and deliver on anything. You don't have to try. You don't have to entertain. You don't have to do fuck all. You can make the fight against the worst possible opponent and do nothing in the fight, and we'll say, well, you know what? He showed class to preserve Mike's...
he showed his ass. That's what he showed.
I'm like, shut the fuck up. Do not absolve somebody who is fucking sandbagging in front of you. Either stretch...
And then admits it afterwards.
Yeah, either stretch this fucking guy, or, better, don't make fights like fucking this.
Like they had a small strike zone where they were going to make this super entertaining or make it worth its while of hype. We get that. We were in on that coming in. We all took the risk of what this could be because our interest levels were just so high, whether it was in the worst kind of like ridiculous way possible or not, or the nostalgic way. We got caught up in that too. But I don't want to hear another person say, what did you expect with a 58-year-old? Guys.
Stretch him.
Guys, do you know what I expected? Professional boxing match. Not a high-level professional boxing match, not a back-and-forth competitive one. I expected a boxing match where there was going to be a winner and a loser, and both were going to try. And I expected Mike to get stretched, right? I expect him to be dangerous for a round, maybe a round and a half, and then it would catch up with him and he'd get stopped. And it looked like it was heading that way in round 3. Instead, what we got would have been worse, is actually in a lot of ways, my opinion, worse than had Mike taken the beating and got knocked out, which we wouldn't want for him, but he signed up for this, and so did we, by the way, right? So what we got was pro wrestling. What we got was not a fight. It was awful. And even there was a short period of what you thought you were guaranteed to get, which is Mike emptying the tank in the first 30 seconds and at least, seeing how Jake dealt with that. Both just left open periods where they could have punched and did nothing, as if they're protecting one another. And then, obviously after Jake hurt him in round 3, could have finished him off with a hard jab probably, but carried him the distance. You can't do the I'm going to fuck him up aerial routine and the slap and all that on Thursday and then do this pro wrestling bullshit here. So what did I expect? A fight, because it was Mike Tyson who pushed for this to be a fight. So whatever it was going to be, as bad or as gross or as sloppy, we accepted that. We were going to judge it for its entertainment value and the time we took to preview this and get ready for it. But they're showing us that it was pro wrestling in the end, and Jake carried him. And yet some people out here are still saying, I can't believe Jake couldn't knock out Mike. Like, it wasn't a fight. It was It was what Mike did in 2006 that people luckily forget about when he did that pay-per-view sparring match with Corey Sanders, who was wearing a T-shirt, by the way, and it was so poorly received that they had to cancel the rest of the pay-per-view tour. And then they basically were going to put Mike in Vegas and just have him be an attraction training in there where people would pay money to see it. It was like that sad. This was worse than that because of how many people they grabbed, stopped. I know you didn't have to pay the pay-per-view. I know that. And that's a bonus in this case. And the co-main event was unbelievable and should have led our show, to be fair with you. But when you get this many people's attention, you're entitled to attempt to entertain them in what you're promised that you're selling. Because there's a thin line here. There's always a thin line of combat sports between playing up the pro wrestling side of the promotion and, you know, we'll let you do that. Who knows if Mike Tyson was really mad when Jake stepped on his foot and slept. We were all like, whatever. It produced a moment. We talked about it. It got us to care a little bit more. But that wasn't a fight in there. And when the casuals who probably only last came for Mayweather McGregor, you know what I mean, or Mayweather Pacquiao, and get upset all the time because they feel this sport is fixed and no one wants to fight each other and all that stuff. Well, what did we give them, Luke? We gave them no reason to watch boxing. And to be fair for Jake here, I think the bubbles burst on the Jake Paul experience. Luke, you nailed it. Like, they jumped the shark right here. We always thought it was going to be a loss for Jake that would end this. Like, what if somebody knocked him out? Well, that's the end of this crossover bubble. And to Jake's credit, as a master marketer, he's kept this bubble alive and it's been the face of it. But Luke, how does the bubble go on from here on out? I know that's not our first point of emphasis to care, but I think Jake not only gave boxing the middle finger here, he kind of gave any respect people have for his own career, not based on that you took a fight against a 58-year-old, but that it wasn't even a fight in the end. And then you admit afterwards that you carried him and none of the punches hurt at all. It's like, then why the fuck did any of us care about this to begin with? Yeah. I accepted the potential slop that it was going to be, but at least be what you're selling.
It's hard to say after this. I don't know how what he does can be bigger than what this was. Now, this was stupid as hell, but in terms of its size and its scope, which really, I mean, if you think about it, BC, like what does a great career in boxing look like? It looks like, to the extent possible, the maximum amount of legitimacy markers you could get, a world title, gold medal, whatever. You want to make a lot of money, right? And you want to take as little damage as possible. He gave up the legitimacy part, but he was able to speed run the money, and he was able to speed run taking no damage. It's incredible, right? But of course, that messes up the equation because when you can speed run the other ones, you're making a trade-off in something that actually is not good for any of us. So here's what I'm going to say. I don't know that it's wise to say the bubble has popped, but I am going to say two things. One, as I just indicated, I don't know where they go from here to get a bigger event than this was.
Right.
I just don't know how you do it. And second of all, there has to be some kind of recognition that, like, there's no there. Not every fight has to be great. Not every fight has to be fun. Not every fight has to be the most important one. But when none of them are important, the expectation for some kind of deliverable to the consumer is heightened. It is magnified. And if you don't deliver on that, what the fuck is the point? If the fight between Jake and Mike Tyson means nothing, because it doesn't, there's no ranking, there's no world title, it's not for anything in a division, it's just for fun. Okay, but it wasn't that either. Well, then what was it? It was an act of nothingness. So my point is, I don't think it's wise to throw the baby out with the bathwater here as well and say, well, there's nothing that he can do anymore. With a match made against an opponent that the public believes would reasonably force him into some kind of action or would be some kind of threat in a real way.
So couldn't it be a Tommy Fury rematch? It'd have to almost at this point be a real
something
fighter.
like that. Something like
Chavez
that.
Jr., or is that even too sloppy?
I don't know about the Chavez Jr. one because he already lost to Anderson Silva.
I'm not saying it's shut down, but I'm saying like whatever certain percentage of the real boxing public or combat sports media and fan public that cared about him under the guise that he's not for real, but he's trying to get pretty close to it. And he keeps talking about that payoff of fighting for a world title or fighting Canelo. Like we kind of pretended to care still in this universe, especially when he's fighting, big name ex boxers and MMA guys. And it's suddenly a thing again. I just meant like jumping the shark and popping the balloon from the standpoint of like, why should we ever care again? Because
There's
who's next? Andrew Tate,
Yeah.
Carl Froch is embarrassing himself, throwing himself at him. Artur Beterbiev put out a tweet.
I know. Well, again, the commercial appeal is significant. And if you're Artur Beterbiev, can you imagine fighting, dude, Beterbiev versus Jake Paul would be legalized murder.
That's not even on the table. But Jake wasn't even going after Canelo, if you saw afterwards. He wasn't aggressively like he was in the past.
This is my point. It's like, I just need folks to realize on some level, Jake, you have to just take a second. I'm going to say things that sound obvious, but take a second. He's not good at boxing. He has limited skills to produce the kind of action or to guide a bout in a way that elite pros do because he simply doesn't have the ability. If he is hampered by that, and he is hampered by the ethical concerns of the very fight that he booked, remember, he's the fighter and the promoter. If he's got ethical concerns about the fight he booked and he's not that good at meaningfully moving the fight forward, what the fuck is the appeal to the customer? What is it?
That's why I think this is such a bad stain. I'm not going to do the whole it's such a bad stain on boxing. I don't think it's good for boxing at all. But I just think it's a bad stain on Jake because Jake then admits I carried him, even though there's people that can we play the Dana sound? There's people that legitimately believe Jake is.
I think he pumped the brakes for more reasons than just mercy. I do believe that.
Well, image too. He didn't.
Yes.
And also, I think they're friends, and he wanted to help Mike out. But
maybe that too.
Let's play the Dana sound, please.
But he basically said, I told him, Mike, you're basically 60 years old, and he's like, you honestly think this fucking kid's gonna do anything to me? He's not good. He's not gonna fucking knock me out. He's not gonna do this. And you saw him. He tripped when he was walking down the thing. He had a hard time walking up the stairs. He had a knee brace on. And Jake Paul couldn't do anything to him. He made a ton of money. And I know people are mad. You stayed home on a Saturday night, but you didn't pay for it. You know what I mean? And, Mike, this is what Mike Tyson, when Mike Tyson shows up, everybody makes money. Jake Paul is I don't have to tell you guys. You guys know. Mike Tyson is the A+++ side of that thing. And he was right. Jake Paul couldn't do shit to him. He was right and I was wrong.
I mean, Jon Jones would almost say the same thing too afterwards. They were more ragging on Jake for not being able to hurt him or finish him. Neither of these guys went for it, Luke. Why are people not seeing this?
But whether it's a function of ability or mercy, it almost doesn't even matter.
But wouldn't it be really bad if Jake had a failure to launch out of fear or just didn't want the stain of getting caught by something from Mike?
Yes, that would be equally bad. But this is my point. It's like either way, dude, if these are the conditions that you as a fighter and promoter have put yourself into, you don't get to after the bout be like, but I was trying to do X, Y, and Z.
Well, it's and anyone did I want to see Mike get hurt? No. But then when Mike puts out that tweet afterwards, which was his way of sort of telling us why it was all worth it to him and that this is, such a big moral victory. And to some degree, for him to get the shape that he's in and for him to command this much attention, it is a win for Mike to some degree, except for the fight and how some of us are talking about it. But which direction was I going with it? Oh, wait. What am I teeing up here? I just lost track of where I was in my head. Yeah, I just lost.
It was a waste of time. It was a
What
waste.
the hell was
Dude, boxing is fucking. People are like, "What'd you want? You wanted to knock out Mike?" It's like, again, if you weren't willing to do it, then don't put him in the bout. But boxing is dangerous.
Oh no!
Boxing is
sorry.
dangerous.
The tweet Mike was saying. So that's the whole point of this. Is Mike basically said that when he had that medical emergency on the airplane, he's saying that he lost 26 pounds, needed 6 IV transfusions,
blood
transfusions, to survive, and almost died. This 100,000% should not have been sanctioned as a real fight.
No.
And if it had played out what I'm complaining that it didn't, Mike would have been in serious trouble here, right?
He could have been. This is my point. If you can't have an opponent, what the fuck is the point of having a commission if a guy in this kind of medical condition can get a license, even with amended rule sets? He should have never have been in that ring.
And wouldn't you say
never?
Mike tweeting that mixed with Jake admitting that he carried him and that this was a farce. Aren't they just showing everybody what this was?
Yeah, they just jacked off in everyone's faces. Yeah, and in Mike Tyson's case, showing us his ass.
Well, let's see it. Let's see it.
What's your prediction?
Vicious win.
Vicious win. Thank you, Dad.
Love you.
Love you too.
Look at that ass.
What are we doing here? I mean, it was one of the great crazy moments. It was during a time when my screen was frozen and I couldn't figure out how to hit play, so I missed it live.
Right there in your face.
So I didn't get to see one of the greatest moments in TV history live, but thank you, Mike. What a moment. Let's hear
King butt cheeks over there.
I mean, this next quote from Jake just makes me mad too. Let's hear from Jake.
Gervonta Davis just posted that he would beat the brakes off of you if you guys fight.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be down. Let's run it. Like, I'd be super, super down. I don't know if
Gervonta needs Jake Paul. Let's be clear, right?
Is there a height limit in boxing?
What about you and Conor McGregor? Are you interested in that?
Yeah, he'll never do that though. He knows. He knows way.
Yeah, let's wrap up that talk. There are a lot of people calling him out. Dude, I don't want to see Carl or even Andre Ward showing that he's interested in this.
Anybody who's a legitimate threat to stretch him, I'll watch that.
Okay, but like, would that fight, let's say it was Andre Ward or Carl Froch, would that be well received because it's at least in theory leveling the playing field?
I don't know.
I don't know what
I don't know what state.
I don't know what.
Andre looks like he's in good shape still.
40, yeah.
He's also our boss. Let's be very careful about that. But he was on the desk and he looked to be reasonably spry.
Yes. And he was telling the truth about Jake.
He was. He was. And Carl Froch is, in his own way, kind of telling the dude.
Froch is calling out Jake's lady, though. He's like going for it.
Okay, that's a little much. But the point I'm trying to make is, going after this event, you cannot do in terms of its success as a financial result or even a pop culture moment. It was enormous. And I'll say this, BC, it was very successfully promoted. Super, super well promoted. But there is nothing to the Jake Paul experience.
And they showed it to us.
In the end,
they showed us the guy behind the curtain.
In the end, it is completely devoid of like what makes boxing great. You could make a list of things. He takes all of those things out and then asks you to still watch. Go fuck yourself. I don't want to watch that.
Yeah, and
put some danger back in there. Put some suspense. Put some mystery back in there. Put some difficulty. Put some competition back in there, and I'll watch.
That's what I'm saying. He sold his own soul for this fight. Yeah. Everyone did, and I guess we're all lucky. Maybe I should change my analysis that Mike didn't get laid out in that regard. But we should be talking more about this co-main event. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano too, and it was amazing. It was an all-action war, and both sold out. But unfortunately, the headbutts from Katie Taylor played a big role.
Do you think she was fighting dirty?
Not purposely dirty, although that was hilarious when her Serrano's obnoxious trainer, Jordan Maldonado, was like, "We love Katie. She's a great woman, but she got a big head."
Yeah, she cheats every time. I'm like,
and Serrano would pull back her original post-fight comments about the cheat. No, but I do think she's very aggressive with that, and maybe, in ways that the referees don't admonish or warn her enough for. And Luke, I think the bigger topic is she gets a Canelo level of benefit of the doubt on the scorecards in any remote close fight. Now, in the end, this goes down again, like the first one, as a very close, basically flip the coin fight. But there's some arguments in the side of Serrano winning here. She landed the bigger punches throughout. It seemed, to my eyes, even though both fought like warriors, and she landed 107 more punches, according to CombiBox, in total, like 50% of her power shots. And Katie Taylor was docked a point in round 8 for leading with the head, was it? So I thought Amanda got a raw deal in a very close fight in the first one. I scored this rematch for Amanda. It could have gone either way, yes, because in this 2-minute round format, which Katie is forcing them to do in this series, and women's boxing in general is still using when it just makes no sense, it is hard to score some of these rounds because both are just selling out. But Luke, I don't want to use the word robbery, but I also don't think it's wrong to say, damn, Serrano did not get the benefit of any doubt in any of that circumstance, in my opinion, to have 2 amazingly close fights in this amazingly great series and have it be unanimous decision loss again here.
So I'm going to say we're short on time, so I don't have a whole lot to add. I will say this. I went back and I looked at the stats. She resorted to, and always does, Amanda Serrano is a prodigious body puncher. Dude, I have seen enough body punchers in MMA and boxing complain at the end when their decision didn't go their way or even the scores were much closer than they imagined because Katie Taylor headhunted, but it had a demonstrative effect, the cut as well, even though...
Well, she'll square up and just let go.
And Amanda went heavy to the body. So people pointing out to the fight stats being like, oh, well, look how much more she landed. And I'm like, I really don't know how much judges actually count body punching that doesn't produce or like a change in behavior. If they just eat it, it's hard to know any value that it has.
You don't win fights on the CompuBox sheet, and it's got to be hard to track those in a fight like this where they're just throwing. But 107 more and a couple other, and the point deduction too. It's like
when I rewatched, I did think it was very close and closer than I thought the first time, because also I lost a bunch of rounds because of the Netflix stuff. I also thought Amanda won the first one, and I thought she won this one.
Dude, she deserves to get 3 minutes and 12 rounds.
Here's what I'm going to say. With the point deduction, I really think Amanda should have won. Absent that, it's very close.
It is, but she would so benefit, and that's why both fights she pushed for to try to get the 12 rounds, 3-minute rounds. Like, I don't know. And it's nothing against Katie Taylor. She's great. Here's a sound from Katie Taylor. She doesn't give a damn.
Of the headbutt from the Serrano camp, what do you attribute those headbutts to? How did those happen, in your opinion?
It just happens sometimes when you're fighting against a southpaw, especially. The fighters going close, and it just happens. It was completely accidental. I mean, they're calling me a dirty fighter or whatever, but that wasn't purposely done. Obviously, I'm in there fighting like she is, and it's a rough sport, and sometimes you get head clashes. You have to fight through those things. This is a fight game.
I've liked her reaction to it because she hasn't played into the saucier side of it or anything, and it's not her fault. She didn't score the fights, Luke, but she is aggressive leading with that head. I do want to see a third fight. Even though in weird circumstances, I want to see a third fight between these two.
I would see a third fight between them. Absolutely.
I think they deserve it, and they deserved more of time on our show, but we gave it to the other big name events, and that happens. All right.
Listen, we had to dunk on Jake Paul.
We did. Do you want to skip DMs and go right into
go through
the
it quickly?
All right, let's hit it. We gave you the chance, and we do it every Sunday night at Morning Combat on the socials. Respond to our plea for your questions that we'll answer. It's DMs from Donks.
Let's do it.
All right, let's go from Vin Manitti. Vin Manitti says, what do you think is Jon Jones's money number to fight Aspinall? It seems like he's willing with a fair payday.
I don't really believe that, but I'm going to say somewhere between 20 and 30 million.
They can get him for low 20s. I even think they can get him for like 19. 17 and a half. All right, sold.
No, I think it's between 20 and 30, somewhere in there.
Just wish Jon wasn't showing us that he thinks that he's going to lose. You know, I don't think he's being as savvy as he thinks.
He understands where he's at in his career, and he knows it's a good chance he could lose. I do not think he's scared. I do not think he's afraid.
Yeah.
But I think he knows that there's a limit to what anybody can do, and it's a risk that he would lose. And he wants to be paid for that.
All right, let's go to Flannels and Jits at number 2. Who should Bo Nickel fight next? We tossed that around. Hermanson might be too rough of a fight, but also, hey, Bo, show us what you can do. I'd be down for, I know you like Kopylov. I'd be down for Hermanson. Not Joe Pyfer, right? We're
not Pyfer yet. No, Hermanson I could tolerate, even though he's ranked in that place. But I just think we need to be careful.
Kevin Holland. He's been lingering between divisions.
I don't know.
Kevin Holland's wrestling is really bad.
Yeah, that's
though.
a problem. Like Kopylov will try and defend the takedown. I feel like, I don't like that one.
Okay. All right, let's go to Walking on Arias. Why the F is Tommy Fury versus Darren Till, a boxing match January 18th, I believe, on DAZN.
Yeah.
Why the hell is this happening?
What the fuck else are those guys going to do?
Is Darren Till never fighting in the UFC again?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe he comes back. I don't know, but not right now. Not anytime soon.
I mean, I don't hate it. I'll watch it.
I'll watch it.
Is there money in Jake versus Tommy Fury too?
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Maybe that is.
I don't think it's. This is what I mean. Like, is it as good as Mike Tyson money? No way.
No.
You know, but is there some? Yeah, there's some.
I guess maybe that is the right move because he'd be back on a competitive level. Prove that you can win that.
What about KSI? Like, is he still boxing?
That's still the big one in a lot of ways.
Yeah?
But I don't care.
Also, I will say this: you ask how they could escalate it. Jake Paul versus Conor McGregor would be fucking huge.
Yeah,
I hate to say that, but it's true.
This is World's Worst Hero. How would a boxing match between Jake and Edgar Berlanga go?
Edgar would beat his ass.
Jake would be bigger, but Berlanga would be a technically better boxer,
Guys,
but not so dangerous.
When we say Berlanga's not good, we're right. Jake is much less good than that.
I mean, Berlanga also survived 12 rounds with Canelo, which is not nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like
Berlanga would beat the fucking dog shit out of Jake Paul.
Yes, you will not see that. And finally, from Long Island Rob, is this a competitor to This is World's Worst Hero again, but he's saying Long Island Rob here. I'll be cornering a friend / training partner for his first MMA match this Friday, and I'm looking for some advice. What are the most effective coaching strategies or cornering that stand out to you guys?
Two things I'm going to say for first-time people who are cornering. Number one, please make sure you have the right corner equipment
The end swell?
in a worst case scenario. End swell, you need to have gauze, you need to have obviously Vaseline, you need to have an applicator, you need to have a lot of things, right? So please don't be like, it's only 2-minute rounds, we don't need nothing. And then they go in there and they get fucking waxed and you don't have shit, now you're in trouble. Don't do that. Second of all, I tend to think giving them 2 to 3 bullet points to think about in between rounds is the best. But even 2, if you can simplify it, do this one thing, do the other thing, you got this, go.
Okay.
You cannot overload them, give them 2 big things to think about, and let the rest
Would you add a
go.
little Coach Latore like puff up, like you're doing great, your hair
smooch,
looks great, yeah, like because she was like, you're doing great, Mike. Like she was like kind of just.
Listen,
a
I mean, it depends how many cornermen you have. But
Okay.
if you're like a cornerman required to give advice, you need to do something a little differently.
When Christian DeGarro makes his Smart Cage debut,
Big hero,
will he allow me to be in his corner?
He better.
Because I'll Latore the shit out of
He better.
that young man.
He
all
better.
right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm using him now. All right. Hey, let's get into my shit here. This is where we close off every Monday because I scoured the globe for the internet and I found videos that are ideally trying to make Luke laugh really hard. This one's called "Have You Seen This Shit?"
Hey, you make me
hoo-ah.
laugh a lot. Don't say you don't. I always laugh at your jokes.
Oh, thank you so much, Luke.
I also always laugh at you, but
Yeah, that's
both.
true. More Tyson Paul fallout. This was the reaction to most of us watching, Luke.
Fighting!
Okay. Luke, anything for the gram. That's how you influence.
What happened?
I don't think they enjoyed the fight. They thought it was pro wrestling.
Like,
and
I don't understand this bit where I'm going to record my reaction
It's so
after I
lame.
vandalize my own property.
Yeah.
That's the lowest. You know what that is? You literally can't say anything interesting at all. So you just engage in like howler monkey feces throwing as a
Yes.
way to get attention.
Yeah.
You're a fucking loser ass bitch.
Okay.
How
Luke,
about that?
Tyson's ass moment was kind of relatable for some, Luke. I mean, this, That's so good.
That's a great
Okay. Wow. Let's go to the triathlon course, Luke. Let's listen to this runner closely.
As hard as she could, and she went all in. Myself. So can you not get my ass? Thank you. Sorry.
That's me getting off the train on every
Yes,
Monday.
sure. This is a Joseph A. Banks. Please. Okay.
I forgot about
Jersey of the week time, Luke.
Hope she's okay. All right. That is.
Let's put some women on a scooter and see what happens, right?
Yeah. There's a maximum loading capacity on that, you fucking bovines. Next.
Right. Hey, Reggie Jackson has been a regular member of Morning Kombat of late.
Active.
This guy's the Reggie Jackson of weightlifting. Watch this.
I've seen this.
I feel like I'm watching myself.
Look at this motherfucker. So you have to brace really hard, push against the belt, obviously. That's a clean rep, too.
Yeah, but we're watching the cat.
That's a low bar
to
squat. And that cat is,
yeah.
You take him to the shelter after this.
Yes.
You know.
Luke, Jon
Off to the
Jones
shelter, my
may
guy.
be okay. Did you say the shelter?
Yeah.
To euthanize him?
Yeah.
No, okay, I'm not done with
listen,
this. No,
here's my
not.
reaction.
I know.
Here's my reaction. Ready? You got to euthanize that.
Oh
bitch.
my God, I will not accept this. Jon Jones may be the greatest MMA player of all time. He ain't the real on the basketball court though. Here's Jon warming up at MSG for the Knicks game.
Can he shoot for shit?
Negatory, good buddy.
Yeah, that's the worst shot I've ever seen.
And I always wonder if every MMA fighter can dunk. Like, how athletic are they? Do you think Jon can dunk?
I mean, he's very athletic.
Let's watch. This is an older video, but it is him.
So he can fly knee. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
Oh!
He's got a different athletic skill. I
Yes.
mean, he's very athletic, but yeah, not for that. You know who can dunk? Serial Gain.
Yeah, yeah, he can. Speaking of hoops, Luke, check out this grab bag. You into those?
What the fuck? Oh, he's doing a sack whack.
Oh, wow. Is that what it's called? The sack whack?
Sack whack. We used to play that in college.
Oh,
sack
that's
whack.
so lame.
You
wow.
would walk up next to the guy
frat guys, right?
And they just fucking
Yeah, frat guys always touching
Actually,
dicks,
technically, that was a Marine Corps thing, if I can be honest.
Oh, wow.
Which is not much different than
Like,
a frat
train's
guy.
coming. yeah, all right.
Choo choo.
Oh, Luke, it's time to. You know, people are trying to chug things to get popular. You know, chug things fast.
Yeah.
They're just gonna kill themselves. Watch this guy chug sparkling water.
Star Wars Lego set Death Star. But can he chug a sparkling water and not burp?
Is that like a LaCroix?
It looks like a LaCroix, whatever you want to call those.
Oh my gosh. What do I do?
Someone needs to euthanize that bitch, too. Can I tell you a story very quickly about that?
Yes, please.
When I was in high school, a buddy of mine and I were walking, and there was like this old man who was like, dude, he was old. Like, he had a hard time moving down the street. And my buddy said to me, looking at him, pointing, someone needs to euthanize that bitch. And he fucking hurt us. He hurt us, or he hurt him anyway. And ever since then,
What
I was
did he
like,
say to you?
Nothing. He just kind of looked at us like with he was having a rough day.
Wow.
But for to be someone in earshot to say someone needs to
That's
euthanize that bitch.
awful. Hey, Izzy Adesanya showed up at a dance festival and took part. What do you think of his move? That's him in the middle. I bet you he tears up wedding, like reception dance floors. I do too, Luke. I just want you to know that. Is this the same EDM festival that Shaq Majori went to over the weekend?
That's actually Shaq in the background doing it up.
Are you impressed?
Yeah, I mean, he obviously can dance. It doesn't do much for me personally, but like, you know, he can move.
All right. Luke, luckily there's some party ingenuity going on in the world, and people are being smarter and more efficient in their drug use. What do you think of this pizza slice bong?
Can I get a slice?
Yeah. I mean, it is putting two of your three favorite things together right at once. All you need is some Latin women. Let's go to this 4-second beer idea. I don't know how these things don't kill your insides.
What I'm going to do is take this drill and this drill pump bit and chug this beer like an absolute boss. Oh boy. Huh? Good. Okay. Oh, that was fucking awesome, dude.
You know, I'm all for blue collar ingenuity.
Yes.
That's why women live longer than men.
I don't know how that doesn't take a year off of your life every time you do that. What about this weed face mask, Luke? I know you're going to say yes, but this looks like it could kill you, okay?
That's the whole point.
I mean, that's euthanasia right there, right?
But everyone, I hope everyone sees when it's time for me to go. That's how I'm. If I got a terminal cancer, fucking
get the face mask.
Get the mask and just finish me off in marijuana smoke, please.
All right. Hey, dirty cars usually make for fun moments on this show. Let's check in. That old Iveco model there, Luke.
Massive cock.
Yes.
Okay, it's fun.
I think we have the garbage can too to check out.
Clitoris.
Yeah, it's creative, right?
I mean, they spelled it wrong, but yes.
You ever play the Fender Stratocaster before, Luke?
Oh,
Sorry, Stratocaster is what I say.
Got a dick and balls on
Yeah,
this thing?
wow, that's something right there. Okay, let's go into the classroom. Let's see how that ingenuity's going.
You know what? These are people who are like, I didn't learn anything in high school, and I'm like, yeah, I can see that. I hope you broke your back, you dumb fucking bovine idiot.
Pinatas bring fun to this show often.
Okay, all right, we got the fucking bah.
Oh, be careful for Grandma. Abuela, watch out.
Yo!
That guy been waiting a long time for that moment, Luke.
Dude,
wow.
What the fuck?
Luke, we know how much you love margaritas, so watch this.
You know, I feel kind of bad. When I was a waiter, you ever been a waiter?
No.
So I was a waiter at a steakhouse right after college.
What was the name of the place?
It was like Adirondack or something. Adirondack. So it was a steakhouse in Richmond Highway in Williamsburg, Virginia. Just the summer before I moved. And I learned that you can't really carry alcoholic drinks in your tray like that, like one-handed.
Yes.
You got to get the two-handed. And if they got the long stems, bitch, you're asking for trouble.
I couldn't do that job. Oh, would you eat at this place, though, Luke?
Jerk off the grill.
I mean, you can get your jerk off the grill, right off of it, yeah.
Nadir said this place is right down the block from us.
Oh, he would know. Nadir would know. That's right.
Okay.
He's like, I want the extra white sauce on that bitch.
A couple more. Let's fart, Luke. Watch this.
Behind me, there are 5 very brave women. Today, we are going to see if they have what it takes to withstand one of my farts. The last girl to leave the bubble wins $500 cash.
Mr. Beast.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I'm done. I can't get out!
That's what it's like sitting in the podcast studio.
I was like, dude, my wife could ace this game.
Oh, let's go to the drive-thru.
I have a walkway that you would like to use.
Dude, I don't get off on this shit. Yeah, see, you're fucking with fast food workers, man.
All right, let's keep the fart play going.
Nah. Okay, this is better.
The decent prank, right?
I'm not kidding. You should go to jail for this.
That's basically a, what do you call that with the covers where you do the Dutch oven?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically it. Oh, I got one more for you, Luke.
Rate me on a scale of 1 to 10.
A solid 8.
Thank you. What would make me a 10?
If you had a huge cock.
Hey, yo! All right, maybe not the best shit you've ever seen, but you still saw it, Luke. Wow.
That last one was disturbing. I think we could have left that one on the cutting room floor. The North Korean censors let that one through?
Yeah, I think they gave up. They basically gave up. Thank you for watching our show, though. That's the shit of the week. By the way, morningcombat@gmail.com is the email address
Yes,
for
it is.
this Friday. How about some fan subs, some dead wrongs, whatever you want to say.
And hey, by the way, you got Figgy versus Piotr Jan on this Saturday, early in the morning.
And Tabitha Ricci in the co-main against Jan Xiaonan.
I think that. Oh, and then also, I don't know how to pronounce her name anymore, but Wang Kong is back.
Okay, I'm down with that. Morningcombat.store is your home for merch, by the way. I hear it still might be. We'll find out, though.
TrueClassic.com/combat with a K.
Please do
Don't forget that.
Guys, it fits great. It looks great. It's not flashy colors. You'll fit in society, only you'll actually be showing off the work you've been doing rather than hiding it because you're wearing the wrong size and the wrong material on that ass.
All right, let's wrap this up, bro.
What are you gonna do? Pick a booger if I don't?
Yeah, I'll pick a booger and flick it on you. How about
That's
that?
all we got. Long Island Luke, thank you for being you, and we'll see you Friday 11 a.m. Eastern on the YouTubes. Thank you so much. We're out of here.
Bye.